4A, 4A, 4A. We got everybody up here. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, July 1st, 2019, to order. First up, we don't have a pastor here today, so if everyone would rise, we'll just do a moment of silence. Think about those we love, those we've lost, and the challenges facing us. And then Skip, Mr. Obadiah, will lead us in the pledge. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Skip.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is the agenda approval. Council members? Do we have any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain.
So moved.
I have a motion?
Second.
Second? Unanimous, so moved. Item number 1, approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes of May 15th, 2019, Council Strategic Visioning Session.
Second.
Any further comment? Seeing none? Unanimous, so moved. Next up, we have a proclamation about Parks and Recreation Month. Meet me up at the podium. Today, the City of Destin wants to make a proclamation of Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout the country, including the City of Destin, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas park and recreational programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreational services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreational programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreational areas ensure the ecology, beauty of our community, and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives had designated July 2019 as Parks and Recreational Month, and whereas the City of Destin recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreational resources, now therefore it be proclaimed that I, Mayor Gary Jarvis, on behalf of the Destin City Council, do hereby designate the month of July 2019 as Park and Recreation Month. In the City of Destin, we call upon park and recreation supporters to join us in recognizing the importance of our nation parks and recreation. And I just want to thank you for the service that you do for our city as Assistant Director.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Real briefly, I'm Scott Barish. I'm the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation for City of Destin. Been here about 7 months, and I can tell you that I'm very, very proud to be here. City of Destin is a wonderful organization, a wonderful community with wonderful people, and I'm very, very fortunate. As far as our parks and recreation go, if you do your research in the Florida Panhandle, despite its small size, this community punches well above its weight class with the recreational and park opportunities it affords its citizens, and it's something to be proud of. And as Deputy Parks and Rec Director, my goals are simple: to make our parks and our accesses to their beaches as beautiful as we can, to make them as safe as we can, and to make them something that we all can be proud of. And I am here to serve. Our staff and our teammates are here to serve, and I thank you very much for the time, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Hit the off button right there about midship. See the green one? Thank you, sir. Yeah, that one.
My first rodeo, pardon.
Got it? Thank you, sir. Midship, sorry. It's a nautical part of me.
I liked it.
Getting criticized here for the peanut gallery.
You're at the
My
helm.
terminology.
You're the helm, right?
Oh, that's right. I'm at the helm, right?
That's right.
All right, up next, presentation regarding the right turn lane into Emerald Grand, Mr. Greg Featherstone, Harborwalk. Sir, you have the podium.
Greg Featherston, 3857 Indian Trail, and Director Operations for Harborwalk Village. I just wanted to thank Councilman Menschel for inviting me over tonight just to address you a little bit of what information we can tell you about the right-hand turn lane eastbound from the bridge to the entrance to Harborwalk Village. We have met with DOT, particularly the Rodney Chamberlain, the district engineer, and we've met about 3 times now with them coming out and looking at the area, looking at the existing, it's hard to call it a turn lane. There is a space between the right-hand lane and the edge of the road that is blocked off or painted off in hash marks just as you come off the bridge. So it's hardly a turn lane, although it has been used as one. We have gone ahead and in that area particularly put up no parking signs, and code enforcement along with the Sheriff's Department has tried to enforce that and has towed vehicles from that area. The idea would be that DOT wanted to extend that to go all the way straight through to the main entrance to Harborwalk Village. We are in favor of that. We are talking to them about what distances they will require. And as I recall, I believe it's a 10-foot lane, a 4-foot bike path, about 1-foot curb, and then a 5-foot sidewalk. So that would go into the front property of Emerald Grand, right along the front there. We have not seen plans yet. It's right now, DOT is in the process of developing those plans, but we wanted the council to know that indeed we agree that it is a enhancement to the safety of that particular area coming off the bridge. While we had all of the DOT representatives there, we also talked about the lights up on the top of the bridge. And at that time, they had agreed and said, yes, it makes sense to them and that they would pursue that. They want to tie this whole expansion, if you will, or extension of the turn lane into the present work that they're doing on 98. By the time they get their plans approved, by the time we work with land acquisition or whatever we've got to go, because we know that it's going to impact our property. It'll probably be that long fence along the front of the property as well as our main monument entrances, both on the far west entrance and the main entrance there to the west side at least. So we've got to look at their plans and then we'll go from there. But nothing will probably be done until after, well, it will be after Labor Day. So I wouldn't expect them. Now, that does not prevent them if they want to go ahead with lights on the bridge. And we did not discuss particular lights, just something up there as to cautioning the drivers that are coming up and hitting the apex of that bridge before they start their coming back down. But we're definitely in favor of that. But we're just on waiting now for DOT to give us some plans so we can look them over. Are there any questions?
Yep. Ray, my little screen is gone with who wants to speak now. There we go. Does anyone have any questions or comments of Mr. Mitchell? I see your head bobbing your head. Well, looks like you're the only one.
There you go. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
Appreciate that, because we've had a lot of information back and forth with FDOT.
Well, I think that, if I may, sir, the one article that appeared in the newspaper this past week, I think it was Friday or Thursday, it was pretty accurate as to where it stands right now with the facts that they had given and exactly what happens when you drive over that bridge, and particularly tourists who first time their attention is drawn everywhere except to the car in front of them. So, go ahead,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, sir. Last week, we had a workshop involving Stallman Avenue here, trying to work out ideas and come up with concepts and think out the box and whatnot. And it was discussed about your facility, the current, what I call the main entrance, as you said, at the red light at the Stallman. Is there any plans by Harborwalk right now to make that only a one-way in and then utilize the west exit as the only exit? Is that something you all have even considered?
No, we haven't talked about that. I think the light is a critical item here, the traffic light that sits right there at that Stallman, because we've got to have left turn out of that property.
Right.
No matter how much I'd like maybe everybody to go to the east, people do want to turn left, so we still believe that there's always going to be entrance and exit at the main entrance. And the west, depending upon what DOT does out there on the median, then we'll be able to tell whether or not they would allow left hand, although I don't think that'll happen. That's too near the base of the bridge.
Can you tell me the east exit, entrance, I should say, the one we're talking about, the one that you would get to first when you cross the bridge? When you come across the bridge,
West.
where the right turn lane's going to be in the future?
Yes.
What are you all going to utilize that for?
Well, we do have, there is traffic comes off the bridge and goes in there now, and the plan would be to continue that. I think there's a question also, emergency vehicle entrance, that they would like to have perhaps that entrance remain open. So some traffic will funnel off there, as it does now, turns into that entrance there. And you know, it only exits to the east. You can't make a left-hand turn there. So it only exits out that way. But our plans are to continue that it would be both a entrance and exit.
Okay. And you would be collecting money on that exit as well?
On the exit, yes.
Right, exactly. In the last workshop and at the council meeting, I was going to bring this up later, but since you brought it up, basically Councilmember Ramswell, actually, when we were talking to FDOT, she talked about that light, that caution light, warning light, whatever you want to talk about. And if you all remember, the FDOT, Mr. Perdue was speaking, and it was about the very end, and the question was asked, and there was another gentleman here, and everybody laughed. He said, "You thought we were going to get out of here," and he came up and gave us the information. And he said to Mr. Perdue, "You didn't even know about this, that we're working on that light and all that, and it's factored in and whatnot." And the newspaper story that you referenced also had that in it as well. I sent an email to FDOT to get some clarification on it, and they don't even have it designed yet. It's not even up for design. So when Councilman Ramswell asked them, could they expedite this and get it quicker, and they said, we're going to talk to the contractor now to try to get them to install it. They can't install what they haven't designed. Plain and simple. So there is no plan right now. They don't even have a design, just for your information, for that caution light. Although it's a great idea and it would save lives and everything else, they don't even have a plan yet.
Yeah, we have not seen any plan on it, although we verbally only that they agreed that it was a necessary thing for the safety.
And I'll get into that more later on.
And yeah,
but I just
and
wanted you to be aware
you
of it.
know, I don't have any jurisdiction or anything out
I
there on
understand, that's not
98.
your, I get it,
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know from the standpoint of light, don't expect it anytime soon, they haven't even developed it.
Yeah,
Appreciate you coming.
sure.
Thanks. I have a question for you, but now following up on what you said, is that something that's in writing? Because we were told that it was part of their plan.
The council got an email today, I had Ray forward it to everybody, and that is in writing.
Wow, okay. Something to look into, for sure. So the way your property is situated currently, that right turn lane, the first immediate one as you come off the bridge, does not go all the way through, right? The curb line extends out and it prevents it.
That's correct.
So is the goal then to make that whole section one long lane without the median cutting a portion? Yes? Okay.
That's correct. All the
Okay.
way from the terminus of the bridge where it ends, all the way straight to the main entrance of Harborwalk. There would be the turn lane, bike lane, 4-foot bike lane, foot or so curb, sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk. So all that has to be added in there and goes right along. There is a sidewalk there now, but that would have to be torn out.
Okay, so essentially how it exists now, the first entrance is for y'all's use. It doesn't go all the way through, so people aren't able to utilize it. If that curb's broken out and that one line is there, that does significantly help. I can certainly see how that would help. So are the negotiations then between FDOT and your business essentially how to do that and coming to an agreement in terms of collecting the right-of-way?
Well,
Or is that
we
the
certainly
stick-up?
were, I want to make the statement, we are in favor of it. We want it to happen. We think it's an important safety issue that will help prevent some problems that we have there on the bridge. We are at the point of looking at waiting for the plans from DOT so that we can lay it out and see how does it impact the property. Then we'll know what we have to do to make our part happen. And there is, I mean, it does look like that whole wall along the front and possibly the monument sign on the west side of the main entrance will be affected. And we just have to look at that and see how it does.
How long is that from the existing right-hand turn, basically coming off the base of the bridge, to your main entrance now? So you're going to be giving up, what, 1,000 feet of right-of-way?
I don't think it's 1,000.
That far? It's
No, not that far. But
Couple hundred yards, probably? 600 foot?
might be 600 foot total.
Well, a lot of cars will be able to get in that right-hand turn lane
Correct.
who wish to go in there.
And realizing, depending upon, you know, the lighting, the traffic lighting, of course, right on red in Florida, so that lane should flow continuously pretty much until It does stop it to allow the other cars coming in from the opposite direction.
While you're here,
Yes.
I have a question. I know that parking has been sort of an ongoing discussion and trying to figure out different parking arrangements. Have y'all considered doing like a second floor, maybe in your main front area that's utilized for parking right now?
You mean along the front of the Emerald Grand, or?
Well, that middle section where you drive in and then there's, you know, all the parking sort of in the middle there.
Yeah, the main, what we call the gravel lot to the east side of the main entrance?
I think that would be it. So if
Yeah.
you come in, that main entrance there at Stallman, and then there's sort of, you know, the parking spaces here on the right, and then there's your building with the parking garage in the building.
Sure.
I was just wondering why you wouldn't make like a second deck or something, that might help.
And I really, not to go into it because I don't know all the details, but that's maybe grand.
Gotcha,
That all affects that whole area out there.
okay,
So
all right,
that's more underground, though, will come
okay.
eventually.
Thank you for coming and talking.
Sure, sure. Anything else? Nope?
I think is that, everybody got it? All right, thank you,
Thank
appreciate
you
it very
very
much. All right. Item 2C, John Fielding, Project Manager for Atkins. Mr. Fielding will present beach to bedding history and potential next steps and be available for questions. So you have the floor, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to introduce and thank this gentleman for coming in, because he's coming in at my request. After the council directed me to look into the possibility of limiting the Crosstown connector to 2 lanes without sacrificing any of the financial funding that's available to us, I went and had some conversations with this gentleman, and he was kind enough to say, hey, I don't mind coming in and explaining where we've been and where we're at and some of the options we have moving forward. So you can blame me if there's any.
Maybe he'll blame you, but I'm not gonna.
I will indeed.
You have the floor,
Thank you, Mayor
sir.
Jarvis and council members. So just to give you a brief update on the Crosstown Connector, something you're intimately familiar with. I am John Fielding. I am a professional traffic operations engineer specializing in traffic and transportation design, long-range traffic planning and things of that nature. So I'd like to address just sort of the timeline that's gone on, what we've done as part of a PD&E study, where the project currently sits with its design, how your funding is currently laid out, what you can do with that, and then, you know, Lance asked me about possibly just what does moving forward look like given, you know, sort of the things we've heard from you. So obviously this project begins many years before 2014. I represent Atkins, and that began our involvement in November of 2014, kicking off PD&E and design at the same time. It's been through several public meetings, public workshop in 2015, a public hearing in 2016, and that's culminated in an environmental impact report submitted in 2018, and of course a final design package for construction that was submitted in May earlier. And then, you know, moving forward, there's, as we'll talk about later, there's some funds assigned to it in fiscal year 21 for potential construction. So during the PD&E phase, project development and environmental study, that is a study that's intent is to look at, one, a project's purpose and need, you know, what is the project for, and then how does it, you know, how does it fulfill its sort of mission in life, you know, if you can think about a road as having a mission. And then along the way, if it fulfills that mission, what is the impacts to the environment and the people around it, physical, social, societal, environmental impacts. So that's what we did going through the PD&E. I understand that your main concern is a 4-lane versus a 2-lane road. I wanted to let you know that what we did through the PD&E analysis was to look at the long-term traffic trends, which I did myself, and to say, is a 4-lane needed? Is a 2-lane needed? And to highlight some things for you. The first one being, from the PD&E, the recommended alternative is a 2-lane system. And that's purely because the long-range traffic did not indicate that there was a need for a 4-lane roadway through that section at any time in the planning horizon that we were doing the PD&E study. The driving factor there is that, as you've all pointed out and as I've heard, none of the roads that connect to it or would connect to it are currently 4 lanes. So it's sort of hard to have an isolated system that on its own would generate 4 lanes of traffic. Doesn't mean there couldn't be a point in time, you know, in the unforeseeable future when that does become the case. But what the PD&E found was that the need was there for a two-lane system of roadways. Now, what we did was look at what are the impacts of something beyond that to go ahead and assess what we would call the worst case scenario. And that's what you're doing with the PD&E, is you're looking at what is the worst case scenario of impacts, what is the worst case level of impact to the community, and that way you can go ahead and make mitigation for that, even though you may not build up to that point. So what has already been designed? On screen I've put the typical section, which is sort of just a cut of the roadway that you would look at. What has been designed is a 2-lane roadway, an 11-foot travel lane in each direction with a 7-foot bicycle lane and 10-foot multi-use paths on either side. And again, I just wanted to highlight that the design as it stands today, the construction plans that have been submitted are only for a 2-lane roadway. They do not go beyond that. And there, as you can see, is the layout. It includes a roundabout on the east end at Beach Drive and a 4-way stop on the west end at Benning Drive, and connects those two, as you're all familiar. And so from a funding perspective, you received a TRIP grant, Transportation Regional Incentive Program grant, for $5.5 million for fiscal year 21 to 22. That is tied to construction of the roadway as well as some acquisition of right-of-way. Those funds are not specific to the nature of the road being built, only that there is a road being built, if you understand what I mean. It is not critical that you build either a 4-lane or a 2-lane. What was submitted, and I'd like to point out, I apologize, I thought I had it in there, and perhaps I did. From the TRIP application was to point out that the project intent, this was submitted in 2016, although funding wasn't realized until later after that. The key statement is to construct a roadway connecting the west end of Legion Drive with the east end of Azalea Drive, and thereby, again, it's not tied to a specific lane assignment. That is something that you want to look at through the PD&E, and as we pointed out, with the PD&E, the traffic analysis recommended was a 2-lane roadway until such time in the future as you may want to reanalyze it, which is completely at your discretion. And so with that, I just wanted to thank you for your time. I hope that did answer some questions, but I'm obviously happy to take any questions that I can and answer them where I'm able.
All right. Rodney, you want to start down at that end? We'll work all the way across, or do you have anything you'd like to ask? Okay, Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mitchell. Oh, okay, you do.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. You have the mic.
Can you go back to the drawing that you have the rendering of the 2-lane?
Absolutely. You're talking about the typical section?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this the same that is actually in the existing PD&E?
Yes.
Okay, so the middle section, this is not to scale, correct?
No, ma'am, it is not.
So it looks like when you look at the existing PD&E and you start looking at the actual plans, we got copies of the 90% plans, it looks like there's a 30-foot median in between the 2 lanes. Is that still accurate?
That is, yes.
So that is the 30-foot that allows for another 11-foot lane, another 11-foot lane, and then the 8-foot median to separate the 4-lane, right?
Yes, currently it's just used to separate the flow of traffic and for enhancement, but if you ever decided in the future to do something on the interior of that, you absolutely could.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. The information that we got provided to us that had this insert with the language change, are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. In the PD&E that you provided, under Section B, proposed improvements, at the very back it says concept plans are provided in Appendix A. Okay? In the other PD&E that we have, that same verbiage is missing. There is no Appendix A. And I reviewed the entire PD&E, and there is no Appendix A. Can you tell me what that is?
I'm sorry, the PD&E is not actually a document. The PD&E is a process. Are you referring to the environmental impact report?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
In the environmental impact report, Section B, on the document you provided us with the verbiage change.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it notes concept plans are provided in Appendix A. We
And there's
don't
no
have
Appendix A. Yeah, let me check into that. I don't have that document in front of me.
Do you have any idea what Appendix A included?
I'd assume it's concept plans, but I would have to look at.
Yeah, but you know what? Can you advance your slide a minute, please?
Sure.
Another one, keep going, please. One more. If you look in that part that's highlighted in red,
Yes,
prior
sir.
to that, that's not in red, that discusses a 4-lane road. The sentence right before the red is all 4 lanes.
Yes, it indicates acquiring right-of-way sufficient for a 4-lane roadway.
Right, okay. So I know you made the change in here, but then when it inserted, that we now have new concept plans that's never been included, I don't know what they are.
Yeah, let me look into that, and I'll definitely get back to you with an Appendix A if it's not included.
Thank you.
I have a question. The 90% plan, when was that approved by this council?
It has not been.
Huh?
It has not been.
It hasn't? It's just been presented by Atkins, right?
Yes, sir. Construction plans are delivered to Public Works. Typically, there's not a resolution accepting plans.
Right. So the 90% plan was presented by you to our Public Works?
Yes, sir. Atkins provided a final set of construction plans in May.
So it'll be up to us to accept that plan and to initiate the construction of that plan.
Yes, sir. You're not obligated to do anything with those, but it is completely your option.
Mayor, I just have one other question based on that.
Go ahead.
Is that 90% change differ from the May 2017 90% concept plan?
90% construction plans, I can't be certain what changed from a 90% to a final set. A final set, which we would call a 100% set of plans, was delivered in May of 2019. I know there's been some changes in regards to the intersections on either end of the project throughout the life of the project, but that, to my knowledge, has been
I asked the city clerk to give me the 90% plan that we had on file, and I got a 90% plan from May of 2017. That's what we have.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of the May 2019? Whomever has that?
Will you speak to that, city manager? Ray? No?
I can certainly provide
Michael?
them again. It's not a trouble.
Michael's working on it as we speak. Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, a couple years ago, y'all made a change that I wasn't particularly happy with, but it was that the new road, when it comes to Benning Drive, it would end at a stop sign instead of a roundabout because of acquisition issues. Were you a part of the project then? Did you pitch it to the city council? Because I remember we voted on it.
No, I don't recall if you voted on it.
But you were
or not.
talking about the intersection issues, and that was one of the ones we've had. And that was in the past year or two when Benning was no longer a roundabout, but it's going to be a stop sign. Trying to jog my memory.
Yeah, certainly. It was going to be a roundabout at one point. I did the traffic analysis for it. I also provided some QC review of the plans. I did not design the plans myself. I'm not the engineer of record for them. I can speak to some of the issues. Part of the reason why roundabout was changed into a more traditional four-way intersection at that location was in part due to the grade there and the footprint that roundabout would take, especially with, I believe it's the northwest property owner in that area, and how much it would have to come up in their yard as they sit currently well below the level of the intersection. So I know there was...
It cants.
It does quite a bit.
Quite a bit, like
Absolutely.
over 2 feet.
Right, and then by the time you've rolled out what we call basically a safety zone from the edges of roadway, it comes down quite significantly. So it was decided to move that in.
Yeah, we took a vote on that issue, but did you say earlier that the 90% plans were never voted on?
No, sir, it's not typical
a
for
resolution.
for there to be a vote regarding plans.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Parker? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So what you showed us, the typical section, is that almost exactly the same as what was in the original P&E document that was the Phase 1 build?
Yes, ma'am. It's very, very similar. I believe if you look at the EIR document, it'll show Phase 1, what we call an interim typical section that has 11-foot lanes and a 5-foot bike lane. And the only difference here would be that this is a 7-foot bike lane, which, as a cyclist, I would appreciate myself.
Thank you.
All right, well, I don't know if we've come up with our May 19th plan yet or not.
Michael's going to email that to all the council members.
Okay, so is it just the same plan that was, pretty much the same plan that was given in 2017 minus the roundabout? Michael, that you can tell?
Okay, the document I'm looking at here on the V drive is a environmental impact report from the scan date. It was in, I believe it's in June. Normally when I scan something, I'll put the date I scanned it at the end, but it does have the Appendix A that Councilor Mitchell was asking about. So I'll get that to you all tomorrow.
And I would like to point out, construction plans are not typically part of an EIR document. They're usually a concept set of plans. It's basically just meant to be descriptive of what the EIR is evaluating. But again, it's not a commitment to construct. You know, construction plans are something you can actually hand off.
Is that all we need? All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate you clearing all that up for us.
Thank you.
And at this time, we'll get into our public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings and any other matters not on the agenda. All agenda items other than those under number 5. So I'm just going to start here with our yellow cards and work right into our blue cards. So up first is Karen Lugo. I think that's it. Oh, Karen? I just want to remind everybody you have 3 minutes. When you come up to the microphone, hit the red button, and give your name and where you live, and you'll be on the public record.
Karen Lugo, and I own property at 100 Sandprint Circle as well as 104 Sandprint Circle. I'm here tonight to talk about short-term rental parking concerns. As the short-term rental owners were waiting for instructions on our 5-year grandfathering process, notices began to show up on the website indicating that there would be additional requirements for parking. Ultimately, this is the page that was posted, and it is still available on the website as of yesterday. It's a parking configuration diagram. It became a requirement at some point during our process to grandfather. Within this requirement, we may not, per these instructions, park more than 2 cars back and front in tandem. We also must measure 22 feet per parking space. This was a surprise to all of us because this requirement has never been asked before, or at least we went back through the last several years, and this requirement had not been mentioned, as well as the fact it's not in your Title VI, Chapter 13, licensing requirements for short-term rentals, although 2 other parking code references are mentioned as far as things that govern short-term rental parking. So we began to try to figure out what to do because in many cases people have parking spaces that do not match the number of bedrooms. And as you well know, that code requirement came into being several years ago. So for example, as I drove out tonight, a neighbor of mine has 7 bedrooms. And now per this diagram and these instructions, she can only park 2 cars. So short-term rental owners are left in now 3 categories. 1, short-term rental owners who complied with this per instructions from their usually property manager because they were asked to swear to an affidavit this year, unlike other years, that they're complying. Number 2, there are short-term rental owners that realized this should not apply to them, so they filled the forms out according to historical parking. And then there are all the short-term rental owners who had applied for their stickers prior to the ordinance passing in January, and there are many of those, and so they don't comply with any of this. So at this point, now the parking spaces question comes up on every form we submit. So for our tax ID, for our tax resale, and for our registration application, it is a matter of how many parking spaces do you have, and impliedly, it's per this calculation. So at this point, we need to know what the city expects, and those people who have given up part of their driveway, when at the time these homes were built, they were not built according to these requirements, should be able to use their driveways. So we need to resolve where the parking requirements stand. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Comments?
I got one. Who come up with this diagram of only parking 2 cars or one behind the other and the measurement?
That has been in the existing code for a while, but the parking requirements are different depending on when the short-term rental was constructed.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no uniformed way
There is a
to deal with
uniform
it?
code. You all passed an ordinance in the past couple of years that applies to anything built in the past couple of years. I can't remember offhand if it was 2015 or 16, I think 16. And for those houses, you're required to have 1 parking spot per bedroom. But for the homes built before that, those are the ones that Ms. Lugo is referring to, because the old LDC provisions still apply.
I'm just looking at Joey because he's the one that has to enforce that can of worms.
He's good.
He's good? You're good with that? You got it under control?
Yep.
Okay, so by her comments, then we have a communication issue for our STRs.
Staff is working with her, though, actually. We're good.
All right, thank you very much. Next, Carrie Harborwalk. Where you can talk again at the very end of the meeting. A few, I just take them. Okay, everybody have another opportunity to speak. Just come on up and talk. I just pulled your name. You can talk again. Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. Doesn't happen very often.
Okay. Carrie Harborwalk, 413 Spring Lane. And I want to touch, again, thank you for hearing me. And I'm up here about the corridor again. And as everybody here knows, I've been here several times. And the gentleman that just spoke prior, I think the main concern is what can come of this. I don't think that anybody in our neighborhood wants to be a guinea pig and think that perhaps traffic's going to funnel one way or another way. I think that's pretty clear what can happen. My family plans on staying in our neighborhood. For such a project that's so dear to the city, it's a very convoluted project. It's very confusing to a lot of people, and I feel like every meeting we come to, there's like more and more information that's being thrown at us. It's convoluted at best. Anyway, I'm asking the city to please consider, we have many families, and I don't mind doing the drive either on my side. We don't want it. We're asking you to please move it somewhere else, keep it in the festive district. We want it away from our neighborhood. So, thank you for hearing me again. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Carrie,
Sir,
give me a solution.
listen, you give me a solution. I didn't create the problem. That's y'all's
problem-
job.
all
And
I'm
I'm not
saying
running
is-
for a council, but I do.
All I'm saying is the problem we already have exists. What do we do to fix the
Okay,
problem?
well, we don't build something that we think can really destroy the quality of our lives. We must think it through. I understand everybody's kicking the can, but granted, everybody keeps criticizing everybody for kicking the can, but everything keeps evolving and evolving very rapidly, as a matter of fact.
All right, well, the question that I'm looking at is, right now, we already have a crosstown connector. It stops at Beach Drive, okay? Then it funnels either to the left and hits Seaview Mountain and Sea Oats, or it funnels to the right and hits West Legion or Kelly. We already have a problem. How do we fix the problem? Because it's not going to go away, it's going to get worse.
Well-
Because you're already impacting another set of neighborhoods not just your
Do you want my
neighborhood.
opinion? Because I'm not an engineer, but if I look at, I am sometimes a big picture person.
Yeah, I'm not trying to argue with
Gary's
you, I'm just
hanging
saying,
on. Okay.
I want people to come up with solutions.
Being honest
to the
with you, I
problem.
think Preble's had the greatest idea. I've been noticing everything that you've been saying. I'm sitting in traffic lights forever. I'm on my little golf cart now, doing my little
I
ice
like
cream
it, by
thing
the
in my
way.
golf cart, and I'm telling you that people are spending time traveling in that harbor district looking for a place to park.
Mm-hmm.
So when the city comes aboard, and not the TDC, we'd like to see the city build our parking garages so that we have control over it, and that the people that don't have employee parking have to pay us citizens to use our parking. We want accountability. When we build the parking, you're going to see a lot of people are going to not be, they're just back and forth looking for parking. And there's many little things. Are you asking for a big solution? Obviously, the parking garage is going to keep people coming, funneling whatever into the parking garage. You might sell that better, but I don't see that coming. There's not even no talk about it. The TDC wants to throw it together, but I'm almost suspect the TDC wants to throw it together so that all the business owners can use it for employee parking, and that's no good for us. I can't even go to the harbor half the time unless I'm on my buggy.
I mean, I'm all for the parking garages, you've known that for a long time.
I'm all for the city owning them.
Well, that's what I am too. Trust me, that, you know.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I don't know.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you
all
so
I have.
much, Carrie. Don't want to put you on the hot seat there.
Yep, no,
Thank you, Ms.
I'm
Marlowe.
good. Thank you.
Jim Wood.
Jim Wood, 3790 Misty Way, Destin, Florida. I don't know what else there is to say at this time. I think we've finally put to bed the 2 versus 4 lanes, hopefully. And a lot of that, what was just said by the previously, the information put out, there's been a lot of information put out that wasn't right. Hopefully now it's correct. So I've always been a supporter of the connector. We'll stay that way forever. I think it's needed, and hopefully we can get a decision made. I'm surprised there's plans out there that y'all haven't seen yet. I think that's really bad. When you get those plans in y'all's hands, you can see them. I mean, there's 30, 60, 90, and 100% plans, and each time those plans come up, the elected body ought to vote on those and put your comments on the record so we know what went on. And obviously that didn't happen in this case. Probably not just here, probably when I was on there too, we probably didn't do it either. So look on us too. So, but I think the connector ought to be done 2 lanes with the 4 lanes of right of way. And just as an aside, the next TPO meeting is on the 18th of July. I was hoping that maybe y'all, either this meeting, which is not on the agenda, or the next meeting, if we could get a resolution or something, if y'all want to move the PD&E from the corridor from Calhoun to Airport up from 2021 to 2020, I need something to put in my hand so I can fight that battle at the TPO meeting, if y'all can do that. Otherwise, I'll do it verbally, but I'll probably fail if it's just verbal. So, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Up next is Lockwood Warner, please. Winnett, sorry.
Lockwood Warnett, 10 Country Club Drive East, Destin, Florida. I'm also here as a representative of the Chamber of Commerce. You have policies in your comprehensive plan that encourage you to develop a grid network of streets to build this road, specifically acquiring right-of-way between Beach and Benning. You have funding from TDD, from the MPO to get this done. And you have concerns about 4-lane. You have a solution in your resolution that is item 4A to hold it at a 2-lane road, which is, I think, very consistent with what Mr. Autry said. This is your street. This is our street, a local street. I would encourage us to move forward and make this connector. It will help improve the traffic flow through the community. It's not going to become an alternate 98, as the representative from DOT said last week, but we have a way to fulfill provisions of the comprehensive plan that have been laid out and adopted by the council. And I encourage you to approve the resolution to send to DOT to keep it at a 2-lane road, because that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, Shane Moody.
Mayor, may I make a comment real quick, please?
Yes, sir.
To his statement. I think the truth to that statement, keeping this a two-lane road, is that this council seated today can keep that a two-lane road. But in 2 years, or in 2020, when the election is, and this council changes, that can rapidly become a four-lane road at that time. There's nothing that we can do as a council, attorneys, anything else, today, tomorrow, anything, to make sure that that road continues to be a two-lane road 20 years from now. The only way that can stay a two-lane road is if this council here keeps it a two-lane road.
I would just respond that the way to fund that road would be, 2042 is the soonest it could be a four-lane road, so it would be a 20-year process, which would give the good, quality, life-minded citizens of Destin 20 years to get a decent council to kill it. And I think it takes a vigilant, I'm just saying, we've done it pretty good time, and I do share your concerns, and it's not just a 2 to 4 lane road of what we would lose if we lost the majority of our council. It'd be everything that we've worked for 4 years now. And so, I think a big part of that's up to us, and we can't worry about consequences of councils that we don't agree with. We've just got to keep fighting to get good people on this dais, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody, your turn.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for the opportunity, as always, to speak. As you know, the Chamber is in favor of the completion of the Crosstown Connector. Some of the issues that we've heard over the last, seems like every month, or every meeting for the last several months, we've been talking about this. And some of the issues that keep coming up are trip counts, traffic counts, number of cars, number of people on the roads, and that's what I'd like to address tonight. During these last few months in some of your meetings, as we've been talking about the connector, you've also approved 88 townhomes just off of Airport Road, as well as 240 apartments just off of Main Street, both of which are in the dead center of this connector's traffic corridor. That's 328 residential units that will put vehicles in this traffic corridor. If you average 1.5 cars per unit, that's 492 additional cars that will be on this traffic corridor. And that's been added because of this new residential development. When you also consider that Destin United Methodist may sell its property to the proposed charter high school, that's property that is less than a quarter mile south of the final part of the connector that's needed. If the school were to hit its projected student count, that would add approximately another 125 cars into the middle of this traffic corridor, twice a day, once in the morning for drop-off, once in the afternoon for pickup. That's another 250 cars per day added to this area. That comes to 742 cars being added to the connector's traffic corridor each day because of new development. These are cars that without completion of the connector will be on Mountain, Seaview, Legion, Kelly, and any other road that goes east and west. And the residents that don't want the cars in their neighborhood are not going to get their wish. Those cars are going to travel those streets through the neighborhoods. And then the residents who need to run errands will be in more traffic than they've ever been in before. This doesn't even include the new development in Indian Bayou, the new residential units there, which is also in the center of this traffic corridor. Because of these added cars, now is the time to approve and move forward with a new 2-lane road with sidewalks and bike paths and a median to ease the unavoidable traffic that will be in this area due to these 3 new developments. If you're going to approve the residential developments, and you should have, those were good decisions, then you have to also approve the traffic flow improvements needed to accommodate the increase in vehicle numbers. We ask you to move forward with a resolution and move forward with completing the connector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Up next is Rebecca. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Moody? Go ahead.
Shane, can you, that information that you have with the numbers and stuff, can you get that to staff so we can get a copy of it?
Next up is Rebecca McFarland.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becky McFarland. I live at 644 Seaview Drive. I am here to represent 78 of my neighbors. I have a petition right here that I would like to provide you guys with. First, I've never been, so I'm not sure. But I count 78 plus myself, 79 people on Seaview, Sea Oats, Mountain Drive, Azalea, got a couple on Legion. After the last meeting that I was here when I spoke, I decided to get this petition together. I called to get guidance. I didn't have any. I had to do this on myself. So I thought I had a whole month, really, kind of. I thought it was going to be the next meeting on the 17th. And I was going to get a letter out to all the 155 neighbors that I have to do this correctly, to send a letter out and say, listen, you guys have heard falses. There's false information that has been fed to the public for too long. It's up to us to do a 2-lane. We don't want a 4-lane. We don't want to do anything with Legion Drive. We want to leave Azalea alone. My brother lives on Azalea. I would never want to compromise his home. He can't back out right now either. But I threw this together in about 4 days. I can get more signatures. There's plenty more people that would like to sign my petition. If necessary, I certainly will. I only had, out of everybody that I spoke with, I had 3 people tell me no. 3.
Becky, what does the petition state?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was the question posed?
The petition, if I could see that back, I could read it. Or can you read it?
Petition to build a 0.4 mile area between Beach Drive to Benning Drive to complete the 2-lane Crosstown connector.
2-lane, just like you guys proposed it. I went back on the video and I went over and over and over and I wrote down exactly the verbiage that you guys said at the last meeting. We don't want a 4-lane. Maybe in 20 years, but golly, we've already waited 25. So, you know, and then, yeah, you put a school across the street, excuse me, but it's across the street directly from my house. I can't get out of my driveway now. You put all these cars and buses, inexperienced drivers, and we're going to have more accidents right there. So I'm urging you, please, you guys, we need that road. It's not going to affect a lot of the neighborhoods that are being said. It's going to affect everybody south of Legion Drive. It's going to affect people on Kelly Street also. It's going to help out a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Thank you for your petition. We'll get that to all the council members. Mr. Wampler.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Ken Wampler, 310 LRIP Loop. I'm here to speak in favor of the Crosstown Connector. I think there's been a lot of good information in the last years, but more importantly, the last couple of weeks relative to some of the concerns that the council viewed, which obviously is concern that the citizens have voiced. And clearly, I think the overwhelming response from the DOT and the county is it's the city's road. If you all want to make it 2 lanes, make it 2 lanes. Now, when I moved here, Airport Road was 2 lanes. No one told me it was going to be 4 lanes. I don't know how I'd have felt about it, but now that I've lived through that whole construction, I can tell you it worked out to the betterment. At the same time, Commons Drive was a portion of this Crosstown connector. Each section has been done individually. So to say the Crosstown connector can't move forward without the Stallman question being answered, it's a valid question, but it shouldn't stop the progress. Clearly, if that was the case, we probably would have started Commons Drive and brought it all the way through Home Depot and to Airport Road and 4 lanes. So clearly, it's a sectional progress. The DOT guy and the county both spoke to that at the workshop, which is you have to do with each section as you have it. Right now, you have funding for this section, and I think you all heard loud and clear from some of the county commissioners or one county commissioner that there's people that are lining up, would love to have that money. That's not a threat, that's just the reality, because there's obviously more requests than there are money to fund it. We have the funding now to get this section of the road done for 2 lanes. And in 2042, if I'm standing here in front of you, there's obviously a lot of good living going on in my heart. So I hope I'm here to talk about that topic, but right now I think we're talking about 2 lanes We need to move forward. We have the funding. You've spent a lot of money and time and effort to get to this point. I would strongly request and urge you to sign or to agree to a resolution to move forward on this project, because clearly it's not going to be done in the next 2 years. And slowing it down now, I think, would have obviously negative ramifications on the funding as well as negative ramifications, because the council, if you look at the flip side, in 4 years may change, and everybody that is on the council says, you know what, we don't care about the infrastructure. That's your problem. That's not mine. We're not going to worry about infrastructure. But the core of the duty of the city council and the city is to take care of its citizens. And clearly, if we're going to approve housing developments and we're going to approve building developments in the city of Destin, we need to also take responsibility for the infrastructure. The biggest part of that infrastructure, obviously, is the roadway. As we've talked many times, I travel through there. I've got friends that live off Legions, and clearly it needs to be addressed. There's no other solution now. I don't think there will be one in the future, but right now we have the ability to do this and actually minimize the out-of-pocket expense to the taxpayers of the city of Destin and provide relief to those who are currently suffering through the traffic that goes through there now, because I'm going to be willing to guess that all of you, like me, use Kelly and Mountain and all the other roads that are currently there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's all the cards that I have. Does anyone here in the audience would like to step up to the plate? Mr. Tadlock. Even though I called your name out, you still got to give your name. Oh, there you go.
Well, councilors, I'm Guy Tadlock. I live at 502 Noriego. And a little over a year ago, I spoke to you about the same topic I'm going to mention tonight. At that time, East Pass needed dredging. We were kind of in a critical situation. We were right on the cuff. We thought of getting that done. The dredge boat was here from Noriego Point project, but unfortunately it wasn't the right equipment to go out in the Gulf. So it got delayed with the idea of even a better project, and we were right on the cuff of getting that done at the end of the year. And Mother Nature threw us a curveball up in the Tom-Bigby waterway, and so we missed that opportunity. But I'm before you today that, as you probably well know, and Mr. Bowman is going to give us an update on it a little bit later on, but the city dredge permit is being challenged, and I wanted to present to you how important that it is that we prevail in this challenge. The pass needs dredging. I think Mayor Jarvis can probably talk about that a lot better than I can. We just had a very successful Blue Marlin tournament, and there were a lot of nervous captains as they were coming in and out of the pass. The pass needs dredging, and the West Destin beaches need sand. So I would encourage the city to let's do everything we can to give Mr. Bowman all of the resources that he needs. I think that's coming up July the 20th.
Yes, the final hearing is July 29th, 30th, 29th, 30th, and 31st in Tallahassee.
But, it's incredibly important that we move quickly on this. And then I want to share one other thing with you that'll better focus this. A couple of weeks ago, June the 20th, the county had a workshop where a engineering report was given on the conditions of the West Destin beaches. It was a report that really was not a whole lot of surprises. It was things that we'd known about for the last 10 years, but it put things in perspective. Now, part of that contract that the engineering firm had with the county was to give that presentation to the city and the public in Destin as well. I would encourage you to let's move quickly on that. I think it would be very important that we kind of get things in perspective relative to looking forward relative to our beaches. If you wanted to look at this report, you could go to the county website under the agendas, and I think you could find it, take a look at it. But I was unable to attend, but I did watch the video, and hearing the presentation and following the handout is very helpful. So I wouldn't want to take anything away from his presentation. But the importance of this is, if you listen to it, basically what he's saying is there's some things that need to be done to our beaches, and basically we're looking at a restoration. If you look at the restoration, there's some things they want to do different than what they did back in 2013, which is going to mean permitting, different type permits. It's basically, there's engineering to be done, there's permitting, there's going to be challenges, and then we'll face a lot of the same issues that we do with the East Pass dredging relative to scheduling. I point this out because realistically, it will take 3 to 5 years for that to happen. This dredge that's coming up fall of this year is the very last opportunity that we probably will have in the next 3 to 5 years is to get some sand on the West Destin beaches. So thank you very much, and if there's anything that we can do relative to the challenge, we'd be glad to help any way we can. Thank you.
I appreciate that update, Guy. I can assure you that Mr. Bowman and myself, our friends at the county, are really working hard on this. There's many challenges. The good news is, unlike in 2013, we've got better cooperation from the state with their plan now. So maybe we can overcome some of the legal challenges that that's held this whole thing up now for 7.5 months on a real critical issue. So you guys keep fighting, we're going to keep fighting, and we'll try to fix this problem. Hopefully we'll put a Band-Aid on it in October, early November. Any other comments? Kyle, would you like to weigh in?
I'll save my comments for my section of the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other people that would like to use this opportunity to share their thoughts on anything on the agenda not in public hearing? Just state your name and your address.
Stephanie Kerr, 1227 Quail Ridge Drive, Destin, Florida. I was asking, when you're doing this new section, I was just wondering, I live in the section between Commons and Twin Lakes, and there's not enough lights. Like if you come home at night, I'm really glad about the new plants and stuff, but those old bushes would make it really hard. My car's kind of low. Like I couldn't even, there's a few times where I almost got hit. But are they going to be adding more lights? Because it is extremely dark in that section. Between Commons and Twin Lakes. Yes, by the airport. I mean, well before that, like right past Commons. I'm the first road past before you get to Twin Lakes. But that entire section all through there from Commons past Twin Lakes, it's really dark all the time at night.
Yeah, we're starting to recognize some areas of needed lights, and we're in the negotiation phase with the power company on a franchise agreement, so that lighting has been one of the topics of the discussion. So we're aware of it. Maybe we weren't aware of that particular area.
Can you
At the curve?
Can you submit?
Sorry.
Can you submit to staff, specifically the city manager, the specific spots you can identify them? That way I'll have them to be able to discuss. When we talk with Gulf Power, we're also going into the budget process as well. So it'll be, if you can identify it and get it in writing to the city manager, then that'll be a big help.
Yes, I can do that.
Great.
Are you talking about the curve or right before the curve?
It's kind of before the curve. Like if you turn off of Commons onto Airport and go right towards Twin Lakes. In that whole section there, it's extremely dark. I mean, the Commons and Airport is very bright. But then you get, a couple hundred feet past that and it's dark. There's been multiple times where, I've almost hit animals and then people, walking down the sidewalk. It's extremely dangerous, in my opinion. And with the connector, I just see more cars coming through there, and then, you still can't see people walking down the road.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is anyone else? Just hit the red button, state your name and your address.
My name is John Kerr, 1227 Quail Ridge Drive. I have two subjects I want to talk on. First is where she's talking about is where Long Lake is, Quail Ridge subdivision, right there. And people drive down there 50, 60 miles an hour all day long. Y'all used to have a speed trap sitting there. It's gone now. But they never had any police presence to slow people down. There's been a little boy killed right up the street on Airport Road, right before school was out. They don't slow down. The other subject I have to talk about is TVH, Timberview Helicopters. I've been to the airport manager, Chad Rogers. He worked with me very well. Now the FAA has taken over. They had a flight plan, a LOA signed with Timberview. Now that FAA has taken over, they rescinded the flight plan. Timberview is flying wherever they want to now. I tried my best to work with them, They won't quit flying over our neighborhoods. And they're doing it 100 times a day. I'm a retired disabled man, stay home with my children. 100 times a helicopter going over my house. It is ridiculous. The other thing, they are recording every flight. And they sell these tapes to the people they're flying. I have a 7-year-old child. We have a swimming pool. He likes to swim. He gets naked outside. I've been to the sheriff. If they come over my house and record him naked one more time, I'll call the sheriff and I'll go over there and have him arrested for pornography, which the sheriff says I can't. For the manufacturing and distribution of pornography. The owner does not care. He says he does the LOA as a consideration for the community. They don't care anymore. They just fly. I think they need to go over commercial property out to the Gulf and come back. They shouldn't be flying over our neighborhoods. The other problem is the 4th of July, they're going to be flying through the helicopters again. Through the fireworks again. I have video of them the last Memorial Day, I think it was. They were in the middle of the fireworks and they got hit. The helicopter did. I have video of them getting hit by the fireworks. They have no business flying through the fireworks. That's dangerous. Other than that,
I appreciate that. Some of these issues that you're speaking of were just brought up at the county aviation meeting. And our county commissioners and citizens here in Destin have made it clear to the administration that, especially through the national parks and services, that they're fixing to make some changes. Okay?
Just, sir, for your information, I have that down under my time. I intend to discuss that later in the meeting, just about what you said, to follow up on that. Thank you.
Any other further comments, folks? All right. Marcy? There's no limit. Just each person's more than welcome to take their turn at the mic. Go ahead.
I wasn't planning on talking, but in reference to the aviation meeting, Mr. Tadlock was there with me. I think there's a serious problem with the gentleman who runs that particular operation. He is pretty belligerent and he really doesn't care. And the only reason that he made a change to what he's doing down at our end is because the National Park Service got involved. So it's a shame that now he's flying in other places instead of staying in commercial corridors. So I would encourage anybody who's in this room that has a problem, we need to get together and get back to that aviation group up there at Okaloosa County and get that taken care of. Thank you.
You know who you can talk to now, Marcy. You guys get together after the meeting. Yeah, now they're flying over my house. Well, I am in the flight pattern now. I knew that when I bought it. Next, Ken, did you want to talk? Anyone else? Anyone else like to come up to the microphone and talk about anything on the agenda or not on the agenda? All right. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and close this portion of the meeting. Just in the interest of time, are you all interested in just taking a 5-minute break, or we want to press on with the manager's report?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. please take a seat? Could our council members come back? We need you.
Well, we only got one bathroom back there and one bathroom over there. It takes us longer than...
I understand.
It takes us less time.
I'm going to call this meeting back to order. As soon as Ms. Kopp makes her seat. Tick tock, tick tock. There you go, ma'am.
Well, I thought that was part of
All right. So we closed public comment. Now we're on item 4, city manager report. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. First of all, I want to thank John Fielding for coming out and driving over here on his evening off to help us get a better understanding of where we've been and where we can go. John just asked me if he could maybe step up to the microphone for just 30 seconds to correct an earlier statement that he had made.
Thank you, Lance, and Mayor and council members. There's nothing more fun than standing up to apologize immediately. I did misspeak. The 90% set of plans that were submitted were from May of 2017. We have an updated set of plans in which we have reduced the size of a pond that have not been turned in because of pending permits. So that was a misspeak on my part, and I apologize for it.
So what we have right now is the May of 2017 90% plan.
Yes, sir.
And are there changes in the plan that you're waiting on permits for?
No, sir. We're waiting on permits for a stormwater or to submit for permits for stormwater pending, finalizing those plans.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for anybody? Seeing none, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you again, John. Appreciate it. Back on June 17th, council directed staff to pursue the viability of keeping the Crosstown connector from Main to Stallman Avenue a 2-lane facility without jeopardizing any of the associated funding for the project. Staff has since had conversations with FDOT, with Atkins, with other engineering and the TPO. We have heard the same thing from each of them, saying that we are completely within our rights to restrict that road to 2 lanes, and we are not in jeopardy of losing our funding if we do that. We could change the TRIP grant application, but the recommendation that John made earlier is a much cleaner way to do it. It keeps the right-of-way for the 0.4 of a mile at the footprint for a 4-lane road, but we only build 2 lanes on it. The biggest advantage I can tell you that would mean to the city is if we were to reduce it to acquiring a right-of-way for just 2 lanes, we would be at ground zero for design. We would have to start over, and we would have to spend all that money again. If that's what you want to do, that's your option, but I'm just telling you, we will have to start over on the design because the 2-lane road is currently designed on the 4-lane footprint. So that's just something I wanted you to be aware of. Staff has provided 3 different suggested motions. I'm sure there are more than 3. We tried to cover our bases. We're happy to try to answer any further questions. I think that we fulfilled what y'all asked us to do in the motion, and we've got you the information for you to move forward on.
Thank you, Skip.
Okay, I make a motion. I move to approve Resolution 19-10 and move forward with completing the beach to bending section of the Crosstown Connector project. And in that, if you read, obviously we've read the resolution, and the resolution limits it to 2 lanes.
I have a motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
And I have a second for discussion. Who wants to start? Any discussion? We have a motion.
Mayor,
All right. Mr. Morgan.
Here's a question I have for the city attorney. The city council has the ability to put charter amendments in front of the voters, don't we?
Yes.
Just
Can you
without.
say that again, Chatham? I'm sorry, we couldn't hear
The
that here.
city council has the ability to put charter amendments in front of the voters. So we have the ability to change our charter based on, I mean, we can pose virtually any question we want to the voters to enshrine in our charter.
Yes, we can.
So would we be able to make a charter amendment to keep this road at 2 lanes? I mean,
This would probably be more of a comprehensive plan issue as opposed to a
I'm
charter.
just thinking the charter amendment would be more difficult to change to pacify the concerns of Mr. Braden about a future council changing these plans and committing to a 4-lane road.
It's something that we can look into, but my instinct is to tell you that it's probably something that would be better enshrined in the comprehensive plan, which would have to go through the comprehensive plan amendment process.
Do we have anything going through the comprehensive plan process soon?
Yeah, we do. We're in the middle of the EAR process, so we'll be sending amendments to the state in the January, February timeframe. You'll be having some workshops on that soon.
Could we piggyback this onto that without delaying what y'all are doing? Or would it delay the process?
No, we could, in fact, there are provisions that would probably need to be amended on the Crosstown connector if it was changed anyway.
So I would then make a substitute motion to approve, or I can make a separate motion during this discussion to do that. Okay, I made no secret of the way I feel about this project. There are 30 homes on Legion between Beach and Benning. There are 27 on Mountain Drive. There are 26 on Seaview. The traffic counts from 2015, 2016, 2017, which, granted, the traffic counts were conducted in July, so it is going to be heavier than your off-season months. The 3-year average for Legion Drive was per day is 3,791 trips, and on Mountain Drive is just under 6,000. And so that's 30 homes, and for easy math, you figure 2 cars per house, 6 trips per car per day, 360 trips for the residents. I mean, these homes here, especially that section, and Mountain too, because I take both of those often. So yeah, I go from Commons to Airport to Legion, and then hit the stop sign, which would be turned into a roundabout, and then go on to Legion. And if I'm coming back from the west side of Destin, you know, I usually take Mountain. And this road would certainly reduce. So you're looking at both of those streets, 90+% of that traffic is through traffic. On Mountain Drive, you have 1 car every 14 seconds for 24 hours, and on Legion Drive, you have 1 car every 19 seconds. And these are, and I've got, I know a lot of people who live on these streets, and one of them, you know, they don't let their daughter play in their front yard, and that's on Legion, and that's a shame. And so we have an opportunity here to create a road, 0.4 miles, that is a non-residential road, and it would reduce the through traffic on Legion Drive significantly. I mean, I don't know the numbers because I'm not an engineer, but common sense dictates you would reduce that traffic, that through traffic, almost completely. And then on Mountain Drive, not quite as much because it's not as close, but I would like to think that you would reduce it a lot. And so you are instantly making Seaview, Mountain Drive, and Legion between Beach and Benning eminently more livable streets. And that's a good thing. And then, let's see. And Mr. Moody made a good point, you know, about if there is going to be a high school on the Methodist Church, those cars are going to need a east-west corridor. And they're going to use one, but the 3 or 4 that are available, Kelly, Seaview, Mountain, are residential. So I think this is a good project. And, you know, 8 weeks ago, we purchased 3 townhomes, 7-0 vote for this project. And, you know, and now we're looking at abandoning it And if the council decides to do that, that's certainly our decision to make. I just ask that we make a decision. Either way, I do support this road, but the people on Sandalwood, the folks on Legion, and to a slightly lesser degree, the people on Mountain Drive deserve a resolution to this. If we do not, if Skip's motion does not carry, I ask that you take action. You know, and that's what leaders do, and we need to take action and not kick this can and leave the people on Legion Drive whose backyards are going to back up to this road. We've been talking about it for 20 years, and the people on Sandalwood who they don't, their homes, you know, their townhomes are rendered pretty much without value because they're not sure if they're going to be eminent domain, purchased by the city. It's really hard to sell one of those townhomes because they don't know if that townhome's going to be here in 2 years. So let's give them an answer. And I ask that we give them an answer tonight, one way or the other. Whatever the decision is, I respect that of the council. I hope it goes in the way of Skip's motion, but if it doesn't, I just ask that we commit to something and we don't let this sit. And if y'all do kill it, let's figure out what the hell to do with the property. Thank you.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I would personally like to see 2 lanes go through this property. I think it would help. But that's not the case. We've purchased enough property to 4-lane it. We heard tonight that it's being, the 2 lanes are being built to be 4-laned. With a 30-foot right-of-way in the middle. And DOT or FDOT has already said that 98 is an F, and if this was a 4-lane, it would also be an F. So instead of having 1 bloody 98, we'll have 2. And I really don't think that's the answer, and I don't think that the locals need a 4-lane highway through their subdivision. But if it was 2-lane, I think that would be great. But that's not, I mean, it's the old bait and switch again. Yeah, we're going to put 2 lanes in, you know, but we're building it for 4 lanes. 3 years ago, this council, the people was on this council when it was brought up getting a high school. That wasn't even a question. It was, I mean, it was, don't even think about it. There's no way that's happening. No way. We're not even going to think about it. No way we could ever do it. Parking garage. They, when I said something about the paid parking, we could start, you know, putting that money aside for a parking garage. And some of the council members laughed at me, said, you know, never even get started. I said, well, at least it's a start. You know, we'll never get a parking garage. Well, at least start somewhere. Well, 2 years later, you know, we had Emerald Grand, they were jumping all over a private partnership with, you know, the city to build a parking garage. And the same way with the high school. 3 years ago, it wasn't even in this universe. But now we're thinking about possibly having one open next year. So, and I think that's going to be the same way with this 2-lane road. Yeah, I'd love to see a 2-lane road, and a lot of people would like to see a 2-lane road through there. That ain't the plan. You'll have a 4-lane road there, just like a high school, you know, not even on the radar, but 3 years later, you got a 4-lane road going through there. And a lot of people, like people here tonight, said, yeah, a 2-lane road would be great. Let's do a 2-lane road. Well, yeah, 2 lanes just fixing to lead into 4 real quick. And they don't want that. And there's no way that this council can do anything. The attorneys have already said there's nothing we can do to keep it a 2-lane road. Just as soon as this council changes, it'll go right to a 4-lane road almost overnight. So if there was a way to keep it a 2-lane road, is what it was supposed to be designed for. And even Craig Barker, when he was mayor, you know, said that it was always a 2-lane road. Kyra Marler said, you know, for 18, 20 years, it's always been a 2-lane road. Well, they bought enough land to 4-lane it, and we showed plans here tonight where they're going to build the 2 lanes with a 30-foot right-of-way in the middle so they could put 2 more lanes right in the middle of it and make it 4-lane. So and we've gotten a lot of, it's funny that, you know, we start asking questions and then we're starting getting a lot of misinformation, a lot of wrong answers. We're getting emails tonight, 7 o'clock, you know, correcting stuff, misinformation. I guess that's the way, you know, a lot of people run their business with half the information, misinformation, don't have all the information, but oh well, let's go ahead and push forward with it anyway. That's not the way I'm gonna run the business. It's just frustrating that, you know, people, you know, they don't have all the information, and they just want to push forward, and you know, let's worry about tonight. But this, you know, that's another thing. This whole Crosstown connector is the only issue that people, they don't want you to look in the future. They don't want you to plan ahead. Don't worry about it, what's going to happen 5 years ago. Let's do it now. Let's spend that money, put that 2-lane in now. But everything else is let's plan ahead. Let's, you know, think out. Let's have a visioning session and look forward 15, 20 years what's going to happen. But when it comes to this, man, they don't want you to look ahead. They don't want you to look behind either and look at the stuff that we're uncovering and, you know, the truth that's coming out. So it's hard to, you know, when you want to make good decisions with, you know, with good information, and we have got no good information on this at all. I mean, that FDOT did their presentation, that wasn't nothing but a dog and pony show. You couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody. So anyhow, that's all I want to say, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Marler.
Well, I borrowed Sherman and Peabody's Wayback Machine and went back into time. We've had a lot of issues over the past years that I've been on council. We've had a lot of issues before that. So I went back with the Wayback Machine to before we were a city. We had problems even back then with traffic. We had a lot of problems with buildings and stuff, so it narrowly passed that we finally became a city. We just sit here and decided that it's going to be a 2-lane road. Mr. Braden states that's not going to be the truth. I could go back in time to the council, to previous councilmen who have made decisions, and we've had to change those decisions over the years because of what's going on. First off, what's going on is we already have a Crosstown connector corridor with the exception of one small section. We have a traffic problem already. We're not going to get rid of that traffic problem. It's going to get worse. 2-lane, 4-lane, it doesn't really matter. It's going to get worse. And I've asked people, and ask, give me a solution. What's the solution to the problem? Don't do it? Is that going to solve the issue we already have? No, that's going to make it worse because more traffic is going to go into the neighborhoods than were there before. Mr. Morgan has got the right idea. We make it a permanent thing. It can't be anything but a 2-lane road. I have a solution to part of that problem, very simple. We can go back and spend and redesign the 2-lane road and make a park out of the rest of the land and say we are a perpetual park. There's all kinds of things, but to continue this 4-lane, 2-lane thing is enough. We have a traffic problem right now. We have a lady that's desperate to get out of her own driveway. I live on Kelly. I see it every day. It took me almost 10 minutes to get out of my driveway to get here because I've got traffic from both directions. And unless I can't turn my truck around the way my driveway is built to go out and forward. The people who are saying they don't want it, give me something that will work and make a solution. I have asked. I don't get that. This is the only solution we have left. We spent $4.7 million on that piece of land that we're arguing about. Not to mention what we're doing with the Sandalwood area and the piece that we've got to get on Benning Drive. Yes, there's enough room to build a 4-lane road if future council members want to do that. We can't control that. It's just like we have already moved and done things that previous councils have done where we've had to change it for circumstances. We've had a lot of circumstances over the years that have changed a lot of things. We change our building codes. We change all kinds of things all the time. But the only solution to the problem that we have now is the Crosstown connector, finishing it out. Is it the perfect solution? No. I joked earlier that, you know, the old commercial of I was promised, where's my flying car? I was promised a flying car by the year 2000. Well, now it's 2019, we still don't have flying cars. We got cars that will drive by themselves. God, I'm getting scared of that already. You know, especially with the problems we already have in traffic. And we had a tragic accident the other night. 2 people lost their lives because they were not doing something right. I don't know whose fault it was, and it doesn't matter. There are 2 people that are no longer on this earth. They're under the earth, and but they're not on this side of the turf because a bad decision was made by somebody. Is the Crosstown connector section that we're arguing about the perfect solution? No. Will it help the neighborhood? Will it help the neighborhoods that are impacted? Yes. Both sides of the neighborhood, the people who are getting tired of traffic going through their neighborhood and the people who are tired of the traffic going through the neighborhood that they can't get out of their own driveway. Those are the issues. 2 lanes, whatever we can do to make it stay 2 lanes, I'm fine with that. I don't care if it's 1 lane as long as we can get the traffic off the neighborhoods that are complaining that they're having a problem. Because the other neighborhoods are also, you know, it doesn't matter. All the people that say no, they haven't come up with a solution. All they say is don't build it, don't build it, don't build it. Mr. Braden is so afraid that we're going to make it a 4-lane. And anybody else on this council wants to make it a 4-lane. I don't. I never have. It was always intended when it was called the Azalea Trail Corridor, it was always intended to be one thing and one thing only, a way for the local traffic to get home without having to fight the tourist on Highway 98. We are not going to solve the problem on Highway 98. We're not going to solve the problem on the Crosstown connector. We're always going to have a problem because we have been discovered, really discovered. I mean, I'm actually changing my mind on Crab Island with where I used to stand simply because of what I've been seeing the last couple of months. I am in support of doing this now. I mean, I have already had people ask me why I voted the way I did the last time. I understand Robert's Rules of Order very well. That's why I voted the way I did last time. So if it didn't come up tonight, I could bring it back up. I will support a 2-lane road, and I think it needs to be done. And the final thing I say is, those of you who are not happy with the decisions that council make, run for this seat. Because if you sit up here, you'll find out it's a whole lot different from this point of view, from that point of view. And we're going to have, whether or not we have the elections in March or next November, if you're not happy with what's going on, my seat's coming up available, because I'm not coming back, I don't think, this time. All right, that's all.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments from any council members? Go ahead, Ms. Ramswell.
So, I'm conflicted because I like the idea of a 2-lane, but clearly what has been presented to us over time and even coming into tonight is still a plan that lays the groundwork, lays the foundation for a 4-lane system. If we want a 2-lane system, it needs to be built as a 2-lane system. And what it's being built as is a 4-lane with the middle section, a very large median, with the 2 on either side right now, 1 and 1. It's, as you heard Mr. Fielding explain, that's the purpose, to transform that center median into the 4. Our own documents, everything we've received refers to 4-lane, 4-lane. The TRIP application that was used to obtain our federal and state funding, 4 lanes. 110 right-of-way for the 4 lanes. Everything says 4 lanes. And this has just all come out. The problem I have in digging even deeper is when you look at the environmental impact report and the PD&E as a whole, you dig into it and you start finding out things such as the fact that this is being called a major collector. Not a local road, but a major collector, okay? So when you go and you look at the definition of a major collector, well, that's not a little local road. Councilman Marlar just said, yes, this is a local road for people to get home. It's not, and it's not being constructed that way. When you look at FDOT's definition of a collector, it says major county roads, major urban and suburban streets, major traffic generators. Okay? This is straight from the FDOT design manual. Local, they do have local roads, by the way. The definition of a local road is low average traffic volume, short trip lengths, minor urban and suburban subdivision streets. That sounds more like what we want. We don't want a major collector. You already heard Councilman Marlar and others. I don't want to pick on Councilman Marlar. This is literally just something that's come up at various council meetings, not just from him, but in conversations up here and with the public. But one of the other comments is, you know, this is going to reduce the traffic counts on 98. Councilman Braden already mentioned that. It's going to remain an F. They've already stated, if you look at the numbers and pull the numbers, it's not going to change. 98 is an F, and nothing we do is going to resolve that at this point, except thinking out of the box, like we've been trying to do, and brainstorm different ideas. It was asked, bring me ideas so I can hear different things to maybe pursue. We've talked about synchronizing the lights and trying to make them all green both directions to try to speed things up. You heard FDOT discuss how right turns, adding in a right turn there, will help queue up the traffic more here and get them out of the roadway to prevent some of those block-ups and create more of a thoroughfare. You know, we've also heard about, you know, changing traffic patterns, making some streets perhaps one way, one direction, one way another, maybe closing Zerby. So we're trying to think of other options that can have an impact, because even if we were to build the 4-lane, and remember when I read through the PD&E, one of the build options was a 6-lane, and it said even that would not reduce the traffic flow on 98. So clearly, we're in a bind here because we all want to do something. I mean, we all want to help. But I feel so misled, really, honestly. I mean, to have been told it's 2 and then start digging out and everything says 4, that it's very hard to swallow. And, you know, misinformation left and right and everybody trying to figure things out. We should have been apprised of this every step of the way and not had things suddenly emerge and, oh, no, that's not accurate. Oh, well, yeah, maybe it is accurate. So that's very frustrating to me because I want to make good, sound decisions. I want to act in the best interest of the people who put me up here. But it's hard to do that when I'm getting conflicting information and the information that I want to rely on is then determined to be inaccurate. So I've got to go with my gut, and I'm very, very unsatisfied with how this has played out. I want us to continue pursuing other avenues of reducing traffic counts somehow, improving, maybe not reducing traffic counts, but at least improving the flow somehow so that things are moving better and quicker along 98 and we're not all stuck in these horrible traffic jams. But we do want to make this a safer area. And right now, people are already using Mountain or Kelly to get through. Those are our connectors, if you will. And I think the people that live more on the north side of Old Destin will continue to kind of go up that way through Kelly. People that are going more southern will probably continue to go Mountain. So it really is already connected, except for that one piece in the middle in which people kind of divide and go their separate ways north and south. So coupled that with the information, I've been getting email after email from people that were in favor of the connector and have now changed their minds and don't want it. That's going to be where I stand as well, because I want to see a 2-lane road and that's not what's in this plan. We would need to do some reconfiguring, some reformatting of the plan, if you will. It'd be a beautiful park, 2-lane with a beautiful park on one side, and maybe that's something we can pursue with a change of plans, but that's not what's being presented to us at this time.
Mr. Mitchell.
I told a lot of people that I was going to look into this and try to make heads or tails of it, try to understand the history and whatnot, and I did that. This project is 32 years old, and I know Mr. Wood left, but I wanted to give him credit for something. He taught me something a long time ago when it comes to transportation. We can plan things, but they're long-term. You don't just build a bridge tomorrow. And I understand, I want everybody to understand that I understand, that this is a long-term project in many, many segments. I understand that as well. But I have asked and asked and asked, and you've heard me say about blueprint. If a load of lumber was delivered to a lot for a builder to build, he's not going to build a house without a blueprint. I have asked for a blueprint for the entire Crosstown connector, from Stallman to Danny Wolfel. And no one, the city nor FDOT, can provide me with that overall blueprint. I understand we build it in segments, just like we're talking about this segment, but I find it unbelievable that there is no master plan that anybody can give me. I did reviewing of a lot of stuff. I want to thank the city clerk, because he's really worked giving me probably thousands of documents that I've reviewed. And some of the historical things I found in here is that other council members in the past voted no on different segments of this. Councilman Marler voted no. Councilman Ponder voted no. There's been lots of people in the past that voted no. One of the things that Councilman Ramswell just said this, but one of the things that bothered me is the plethora of misinformation that we've been given. When FDOT came here for us, we provided questions to them ahead of time. And I was all in favor of providing them questions because I wanted them to be able to answer my questions, because that's how I can make a decision on what's going on. They came here and they had no material available. Many of the questions were not answered. Many of them were. Subsequent to that, many of the questions that were provided to us, and I should say answers that were provided to her, I've had quite a few emails that the council has all been provided. I've asked FDOT specific questions in furtherance of their performance here, and have contradicted themselves and or completely reversed what they've said. I asked about trips on the road, would it be impacted, and we were told no. I've got an email that now says yes, it will. I mentioned earlier about the warning light on top of the bridge. Maybe there's misunderstandings about the right turn lane in Emerald Grand. I can understand how that could be a misunderstanding. We all thought they were talking about the Stallman entrance, and in effect it's this first entrance. I can understand that. But there's no misunderstanding about a signal light being put on the top of a bridge. You're not going to get with a contractor to speed up the light when the plan hadn't even been developed. So I'm really taken aback by the misinformation. FDOT has called me and representatives, and I thank them for that. And again, I followed up with it in email, and council members have all of the things I'm talking about. I sent it to Mr. Bailey, and he sent it to all the council members. One of the other things that I find very interesting is Councilmember Ramswell, if you recall, and she mentioned it a little while ago, a couple of meetings ago, she brought up about the PD&E, how it talked about 4-lane. I also acknowledge to you that we received a lot of emails, and I personally took the time to email everybody that sent me an email. And I gave them a bunch of questions, and every single one of the people responded back to me and answered my questions, and I'm grateful for that. But the one thing they didn't do, I specifically discussed the 4-lane, and I gave them pictures of the information, and not one person would discuss that. They talk about everything else and they discuss it. We've talked about documents. Let me just give you an idea of the amount of documents. The final preliminary engineering report, made by Atkins has 4-lane. The City of Transportation Corridor Management Plan has 4-lane. The Conceptual Stage Relocation Plan, 4-lane. The checklist, 4-lane. And it goes on and on and on. The Destin Crosstown Connector, Azalea Drive to Legion Drive, 4-lane and then some. So it's not just one document that talked about 4-lane, and I realize we've discussed 2-lane, I get that. But what I don't like is I can't get a straight answer sometimes. If I ask somebody a simple question and they either don't answer me or won't answer me, I get suspect about that. Now, let me give you an answer, and obviously I'm not out of my mind, but it takes money. We want a solution. There is a solution, and you all can laugh and shake your head and all that. It's never going to happen. If we had money, there's a solution. We could put an elevated bridge through Destin. If you live in other cities, that happens all the time. The east-west corridors or north-south corridors, the pass-through traffic goes on an elevated bridge, and then there's people in Destin travel below the bridge. That's a real, live solution when people are looking for solutions. But we all realize, like I started this thing, things take time, number one, and the money that would cost, obviously we're not going to see it in our lifetime. But that's a solution. Now let me talk about unintended consequences for a few minutes. Do you all remember before the Mid-Bay Bridge opened their extension, and to get to the toll plaza, toll booth, you'd have to snake through White Point Road and whatnot. And obviously on Saturdays during the busy part of the summer, when we had our tourists coming, that toll plaza was backed up with cars. But because the vehicles were snaking through White Point Road, they're not backed up as far as they are now, because now it's a straight shot, that toll plaza is backed up for miles. A possible unintended consequence is on Azalea, because Azalea is a straight shot, it's not zigzag, there are no stop signs, and obviously people are going to drive a lot faster on Azalea, whether they're supposed to or not. Traffic on Azalea is going to back up a lot faster at Stallman than it's doing now because of the zigzag and whatnot. And that's going to dump more people into the roadways as well, the cross streets. If you take it as far back as Benning, then the traffic's going to divert to other roads anyway. So a long-term unintended consequence might be the same as the Mid-Bay Bridge. You're putting more cars in a location faster, which has obviously consequences. The big thing that I find is, like Councilman Braden said, even now at this meeting, we're continuing to get information that we've never seen before. And I don't know what I don't know, but I'm very concerned about the fact that I've asked questions and I don't get answers, or I get, okay, well, that's not what I meant. Oh, no, you didn't understand. I know what I asked. I know what I was told. But I'll just, again, focus on, there's no mistake about is there a warning sign on top of the Mid-Bay Bridge. They didn't misunderstand. We weren't speaking anything but English, and they told us it was going to be done. It's not even designed. I don't like being given misinformation by FDOT, and I just question, what else do we not know? I'm troubled by that. I also agree that, yes, this could potentially be an idea that might work, but I'm troubled by the fact I don't know what I don't know, and there's so much information that we've asked for and we don't have, and I can't support this.
Your turn. Nothing?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I respect everybody's opinion on this topic. I understand this is a long, drawn-out, convoluted project. I understand. I live on Kelly Street. I'm on one of those roads that is serving as a de facto crosstown connector right now. And it is hard to get out of my driveway. I get it. But I do know that what is being proposed under Skip's motion right now, which is the recommended motion to approve the plans as submitted and to bind ourselves with a resolution that says it shall stay a 2-lane. I mean, I'm not substituting my own legal judgment. I'm offering no legal advice to anyone here, but I know that resolutions are worthless from a binding standpoint. Future councils will change them. I'm a bit concerned. Well, I'm not a bit concerned. I'm very concerned. I know how the game's played. You you get the right-of-way in inventory and you hold it in preparation for a future incremental expansion. And that's what that 30-foot median is in the middle. And I respect Mr. Morgan's attempt to split the baby, so to speak, and offer an olive branch to Mr. Braden regarding perhaps enshrining it as a charter amendment. I don't believe it probably will be allowed under Florida law to be enshrined as a charter amendment, so the best you could do is a comp plan amendment. And those are not binding. Future council can change it. The only way to ensure that this will stay a two-lane road is to redesign it and resubmit with the right-of-way only necessary for a two-lane. And I understand that'll jeopardize funding, but honestly, that doesn't bother me too much. Given the politics that surround and swirl this entire project, I promise you, if it gets redesigned and the Chamber of Commerce and Destin Water users and Greg Casella want it bad enough, that money will come back again. It's guaranteed. So it won't disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and make a substitute motion that staff take absolutely no further action on the current design of the Crosstown connector and begin the process of a redesign, submitting, and have it be a two-lane right-of-way with only the requisite right-of-way for a two-lane road.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Manchin.
I wanted to follow up. I was looking at my notes, and there was one other thing I wanted to discuss. I apologize. Everybody talks about the Crosstown Connector as being a local roadway, as being for the locals. And my question is this, okay? Might be a rhetorical question, but why is bed tax money being used for a local road? Okay? We need bed tax money to support the sheriff's office and to give us more police support and things like that. If the Crosstown Connector is truly a local road, why is bed tax money being used for that?
I believe because we thought we were going to get funded through the Triumph funding, and when that was taken for the bypass, the county stepped up and paid the road. That's why that was done.
I understand, but it's just a question.
I just answered your rhetorical question.
Yes, thank you. But I'm just looking at, because we need help on a lot of other things from them. As far as what do we do with the property, I didn't offer that idea as well. Two other things. Number one, what we desperately need, and the staff is working very hard and we've got a plan on, we need more beachfront property, parking, and beach access. If we chose to get rid of this property, we could sell it at fair market value and we could turn around and we could buy beachfront property and everybody would benefit from that, locals and tourists. And the other thing I just wanted to bring out is from a standpoint of Stallman interchange. We talked about ideas. I sat out there the other day and I watched again at Stallman and 98, cars turning right. And the one thing I notice now, it's so out of sync that when the green light, you can't turn red at Stallman and 98, there's no right turn. When the green light turned green, which would allow the right turn lanes to head west into Fort Walton, the walkway light turned green at the exact same time. So the pedestrians were leaving at the exact same time as cars, and you can't help but have a conflict. Okay, we've got to look at the timing on that. If anything else, let the pedestrians start 10 or 15 seconds ahead of time, but when you've got two lights changing at the exact same time, you got car versus person, obviously that's an issue. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Morgan.
So we're going to redesign the road, lose the funding, be talking about this in 5 to 10 years from now. Essentially, we're taking no action. We're leaving the residents on Sandalwood in suspense. Their values, property values, are rendered pretty useless. The folks on Legion Drive have no resolution in sight. These neighborhoods, the funding's available. The road could be built in a couple of years, and these neighborhoods could get much better. It still doesn't explain why every member that's up here tonight voted buy 3 townhomes 2 months ago. Wish we would have made this decision prior to that. We have any idea what we're going to do with townhomes for the next 5 to 10 years? I would ask you to, and then eminent domain, if a future council really wanted to build this road, sure, we can get the designs changed and reacquire the funding. And the fact remains, they could still build a 4-lane road one day. It would be a lot more difficult, But I mean, if ultimately that's what they want to do, they can get it done. But I think it's up to the public and the city council to stop that from happening. But either way, here we are, taking no action, we're kicking the can, and I think that is the worst possible option. Kill it or let's get the road built, but don't kick the can for another 10 years.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marlar.
What Mr. Mitchell said about selling the land, and what are we going to build? Who would build what if we sold the land? God forbid, more housing, more traffic in the same area. Chatham's right. We keep kicking the can on this, and I keep hearing the same thing. It's been planned as a 4-lane road because it's this, and this, and this. We, as the mayor has said it over and over again, this council has the power to make it a 2-lane road and nothing else if we want it that way, without having to go back and spend more money on another study. Forget the PD&E, forget all this stuff. If you wanted a 2-lane road, make it a 2-lane road and get it done, because what's going to happen is we kill it tonight, the traffic is still going to come where it's coming, and it's going to get worse. And okay, fine. GPS is now figured out. The tourists can figure it out. Some of those people might go in those neighborhoods because they want to live here. So they're going to look at some of the houses. I've sat on this council going on 16 years. It hurts me in one way that nobody listens to the voice of logic. We can do what we want with it and then make it to where it will work for everybody. Or we do exactly this. We kill it. There's no going back if we kill it. Especially if we sold that piece of property, there is no going back. Is it going to change anything? Yes. It may help. I remember very clearly Mid-Bay Bridge, a road to nowhere. My God, we got Hurricane Opal, and guess what? It was the only way that we could get to Fort Walton. I worked in Fort Walton at that time, and if I was not on that bridge by 5:30 a.m., I couldn't get to work by 7, because that was the only way for 2 weeks that we could get there. Now that Mid-Bay Bridge, even though we have a lot of traffic backup, it's doing its job. It's helping us. If we don't build this corridor, the rest of this corridor, you are going to create, to me, a more problem than anything else. It will be worse. All we're trying to do is try to get a traffic issue. I keep hearing about 98 this, 98 that. DOT stood right here and said it's up to us if we want to do it or not do it. They don't have any control over it. It's frustrating. I know how I'm voting, and I know, like I said, run for this office and sit in this seat and see what it feels like, and then you'll understand why I'm really angry right now. Thank you.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you. City Manager, the 3 townhomes that were voted on 3 months ago, do you know which ones those were? And are they under contract?
We purchased those.
When were they purchased?
Right after the permission was given by council. We followed through on. Honestly, it wasn't all 3. One of them had already been purchased before my tenure. The other 2 were purchased after you gave permission.
You don't know which ones they were?
I can get you the numbers of those units. There are 2 in one building and 1 in the building across the street.
Okay.
And we will still need those, yeah. I mean, if the council desires.
So, Mr. Braden.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Ramsell, you get one more chance. You only spoke once.
I mean, the only thing I would say is if this passes this evening, the stop for now motion passes, that maybe we can look into, I don't know, maybe doing something for those people if they do want to stay or if they don't want to stay, landscape, I don't know, something to try to see what they want to do and improve their conditions, and maybe, I don't know, but just some things to look at.
Thank you. Well, we have a motion and we have a second. We've had discussion. And now it's my turn. I don't get to vote. but I do want to go on the public record where I stand. Traffic's like water. It flows and follows the path of least resistance. When a river reaches capacity, it flows where it was never intended. Traffic does the same thing. The impacts are real, and the effects, the residents now, with no relief in sight. When our roads reach capacity that we have built right now, that traffic goes to places it never was intended to go. The people that are complaining about the traffic now, this motion will prevent no relief. The situation will remain. Gridlock will get worse. The council approved 328 new townhomes, new families with 1 or 2 cars. We have a possible high school that may be built with 800 students in its 4th year, 100 yards from the main source of gridlock, which is Legion and Beach. So gridlock, instead of being at 5, is going to be at 255 when high school lets out. And about the time that clears, because there is no connectivity to help relieve that, then the 5 o'clock gridlock will start. FDOT, when they came here, they said that the key focus for any community is connectivity. The key is infrastructure improvements of any kind when it comes to roads. FDOT was extremely clear that it was our road and we decide what we build about 15 times, over and over and over. Gridlock's going to happen. The connector will help reduce the timeline that gridlock happens. Hour, maybe 40 minutes, and then it clears. Will we build a house, some more apartments, some more homes, a high school? It's going to get worse. What really bothers me about this whole discussion is that for some reason none of that makes any difference. It's almost like we're pretending it's not going to happen tomorrow or the next day. All I want to say is there's no they there. There's no conspiracy theories. It's our city. It's our road. It's our staff. This council hired these people. This is the council that has control on any decision-making process. FDOT was extremely clear on that. I don't wear 10 hats. That's not how I operate. It's a captain thing in me. I evaluate the situation based on facts and reality that's happening now. And I try to make decisions that is going to prevent that from happening again, not only now, but in the future. So I have a hard problem with this, all this gobbledygook. It's almost like we can't see the forest for the trees. To do nothing is ludicrous. To waste this money to build needed, critical infrastructure that our citizens need is beyond comprehension. And when our citizens sit in gridlock for 30 or 40 or more minutes, more than they should because we didn't build this road, maybe they'll remember who voted to do nothing come election time. That petition should make you have pause. This is a clear case of lack of vision. This is not a game. We're not wallowing in the weeds, it seems like, and as a result, it seems we're not being able to see the forest for the trees. I think there's no community in the state of Florida that doesn't need more connectivity and more roads. And this road may help some. We definitely know it'll help an immediate 100 families in our community. And for us not to do this based on these conspiracies and that kind of stuff is not only disappointing, it borders ridiculous. Thank you. We'll take this to a vote. We have a motion. You want to read the motion so everyone's clear?
Mr. Mayor, can I get clarification on the motion? Because there were two concepts in there. One was to do nothing, and one was to move forward with a 2-lane.
That's what I was asking Ray for. You want Ray to read it back, and then Mr. Destin, you can clarify it? Ray, do you have the motion as it was spoken?
take no further action on the Crosstown connector and start the redesign process of redesign the corridor for a two-lane road.
Okay, that's your motion. Would you like to expound on that, Mr. Destin?
Do you need specifics?
When you say the two-lane road, start an RFQ for that?
Start an RFQ. We're going to redesign it with the necessary right-of-way so that if in the future they want to expand, they have to buy new right-of-way.
Does that change the verbiage of the motion?
Do you want to just amend your motion to add the RFQ language in?
Would that help? That's fine.
I believe that would help.
Okay, Ray, read us what you have to help Mr. Destin clarify.
I think it's already been clarified, Mayor.
Good?
I'm good.
Go ahead.
No, we can go ahead with a vote.
We have a motion, we have a second, here's a vote. Wait. Sir?
Lance, would you reach out to the people in Sandalwood and kind of let them know where the city stands on this?
Yes.
The vote is 4-3, so moved. Lance, you're still up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4B was brought forward during the June 24th workshop. Council had asked staff to bring back potential ways to expedite improvements to the intersection of Stallman Avenue and US 98. Staff has researched this and has some recommended motions. A couple of different ways we can approach it, or we can combine the two. One being making a recommendation to the county commission to move the project priority up on the TPO's list and ask them for assistance in funding. The other is to request traffic operations analysis to be done on that intersection. That would be done in advance of the PD&E that's already scheduled by FDOT. And the purpose of that would be to offer the city some suggested ways to improve the intersection before the PD&E is completed.
Mr. Oberdeer?
I'm trying to improve my batting average, so I'm ready to make another motion. Can I make the motion?
You may.
Okay. All right. So I take a little bit different than what is written here in the recommended motions. What I would do is I would recommend staff have a traffic operations analysis done for alternate improvements for the intersection at Stallman and US 98, and that we cap that at $50,000.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Ms. Ramswell, your name was up.
Sure. I know one thing that had been mentioned, and some members of the public seem to think that might be a good idea, at least something to look into, was the dead ending of Zerby. But I didn't see that on here as something to look further into.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me, please?
Sure. I was just mentioning that one thing that was brought up at this meeting as something that might be a possibility to help was dead ending Zerby, but I don't see it on here. Can you add that to the list?
Yeah, we can make it clear. If this passes, we can make it clear to the engineering firm that conducts the study to consider that option.
Rebel, are you talking about all of Zerby or just a portion of it?
Just a portion of it.
Because
That's up to them to figure
the
out.
part I think you're talking about is coming into Stallman, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but the only other issue would be how do they get to the parking lot down below? They'd
The
have
other
to go
way,
back.
turn right on Stallman or go around. That's not for us to
Yeah.
decide. We'll
I
let
know,
them
I'm just-
investigate it.
Right now, I know I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have a problem supporting that part, but I don't know how that's going to help us.
Mr. Mitchell.
we had the Stallman Avenue workshop, and the subject here is Stallman Avenue intersection improvements, and I realized the motion, and as I said earlier, nothing in traffic happens overnight. It's going to take time for that study, it's going to cost money and everything else, but we still haven't come up with some kind of temporary fix, some kind of Band-Aid. We talked about one-way streets, I talked about the crosswalk, and we still can't lay that aside. We still have to consider that. I would ask staff to strongly contact the county and FDOT about the synchronization at that light. You know, one thing that happens sometimes with lights is that if you manually override one intersection, okay, it would impact further down the way because you're dumping too many cars down the way and that light doesn't catch up. But if you look at Stallman and 98, there is no light until you get to Beach Drive. That's a lot of roadway between Stallman and Beach. You've got 2 crosswalks there, but you don't have any other red light. We heard FDOT tell us the other night that some people thought, the mayor, and talked about the crosswalks. Those crosswalks don't impact the signalization at the intersections. So we really need to look at the level of time the synchronization is at Stallman and 98. That's something that I know we could do, that with this, you know, the county could do or the state could do. If we increase that, for example, Matthews going north and south, it's only 26 seconds north and south. Okay, that's all the time it is for a car to cross. Okay, so at Stallman and 98, that's not going to cost us a lot of money, but I'd ask staff to take a look at that, talk to the county, and see if they could increase the time on that light at that intersection. Because headed east, yeah, you're going to put more cars that way, but you're not being stacked up like you would at Matthews and 98 and Danny Wolfle, okay? They've got enough roadway in there that you've got the distance that you're not going to create a problem. So I would just ask staff, because again, we're trying to find a way to resolve that right now. Change the timing and also rectify the conflict between passengers and cars that I talked about earlier. You can't have both of those lights green and not expect a problem. Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion? Got a second?
Mayor, if I might real quick.
Go ahead.
Can we somehow get, I don't know if the TPO's meeting's before our next meeting, but if we could somehow have Ray come up with a resolution with what Jim Wood had requested for us to expedite the PD&E funding from 21-22 to 2021. So we're good? So we can get them to the second meeting in July? Yeah, Ray, if you maybe just, I don't know if we need a motion or consensus, staff.
Just a resolution.
A resolution stating exactly what Jim Wood wants it to state.
Right, so Jim does go.
Mr. Mayor.
I think he wanted to speak.
Mr. Mayor, in the second recommended motion, there is an option to have the mayor draft a letter to the county that they could deliver to the TPO requesting that item be prioritized at a higher level. So, and that's something we could do tonight.
Do you want me to add that to the motion? Yeah, I'll amend the motion to add the letter from the city or signed by the mayor to the TPO.
All right, so amended. Who seconded that? Is that okay? Parker. Yes? Okay. And who, oh yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I had a question. Councilor Mitchell, you were interested in making the light to flush Stallman longer. Is that correct?
Yes, okay, and also have the conflict between pedestrians and that green light rectified. Okay, again, when you're going south on Stallman, making a right, at the same time you're making that light turns green, the pedestrian light turns green as well,
yes,
simultaneously.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And that it builds an automatic conflict. So, I mean, there's got to be something they could do, even if they're holding the cars for 10 or 15 seconds, and that would at least get the person to the eastbound side of the road before the cars start turning. Because that slows the traffic proceeding through that intersection because they're dodging people.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you.
I concur with Mr. Mitchell because I'm there all the time, and it's partially on the one that's in front of Whataburger, that goes on the Whataburger side to one side of the Emerald Grand entrance. It does what Mr. Mitchell's talking about, but on the other side, from you going from the gas station over, it's like 2 or 3 seconds. You'll get the white Walkman, and then the light will turn green to go, and you got a lot of people making those right turns and left turns. So I see where he's coming from, and I have to agree with that.
Just if I'm not mistaken, the Whataburger crosswalk activates when the Harborwalk light turns green.
Yes.
Takes it onto 98.
Yes.
And the Chevron crosswalk turns, you get the white man there when the Stallman light turns green.
That is correct.
And just for information, the time allotted for a pedestrian to cross 98 is it's a matter of the distance over that road divided by miles per hour.
It's roughly about 30 seconds.
Ms. Ramswell?
Thanks. I did think of something else that wasn't on here, and I was surprised when it was met so positively, and that was looking at undergrounding a sidewalk, a pedestrian crossing. So if that's something that could be mentioned, I know the FDOT representatives like that, as did Commissioner Boyles. And apparently that's a project that's currently occurring off 30A right now to Inlet Beach. So something to look at.
Seeing no further comment, let's go ahead and take this to a vote.
Mayor,
Yes.
excuse me. I'd like to confirm this motion again, if I can.
Read it.
Yes. Earlier, your motion was to conduct a traffic concurrency analysis on Stallman, capping the amount at $50,000. That was part of your motion, sir. And then you added, direct the mayor to draft a letter to the county asking for their assistance in moving this project up on Okaloosa Walton County TPO's project priority list. Is that the whole motion?
Yes. All right. We know what we're voting on. Go ahead and vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Sir.
Item 4C is regarding change of use regulations and the process for that. We have Mr. Zanguzzi here to have a brief discussion on that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. This is primarily a housekeeping item, but because it involves a change in the ordinance, that's why I'm bringing up for your discussion. As you know, because of our size, we pretty much have a challenge as far as our development is concerned. Primarily, we see development from a redevelopment standpoint. Properties changing uses, some intensifying uses on existing properties or buildings, or addition of uses to existing uses. But we do not have a clear path to facilitate that process. And I would like to institute that and work with the city land use attorney to come up with an ordinance that will clarify that process for staff, as well as make it a much smoother process for citizens and the development community.
I'll make a motion to instruct Mr. Zanguzzi to work with the city's land use attorney to develop a ordinance regarding the change of use regulation and corresponding process.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion on this? Any questions for Lewis? Seeing none? Hurry, Rodney. Ayes have it, so moved. Sir.
Mr. Mayor, item 4D is regarding outdoor dining parking regulations, and again, we have Mr. Zanguzzi here to have a brief discussion.
Sure. I initially wanted to simply bring before you a set of regulations written to address the issue, but I thought perhaps having a discussion with you to provide a context would be a better approach, because it's a lot more complex an issue than simply resolving just outdoor dining. Just to preface the matter, I think it is important to note that the way we calculate parking at this point, especially for restaurants, does not include outdoor dining areas. So that's one aspect of the problem that we have. In addition to that, we also, through the multimodal transportation district, as you know, we discourage off-site parking areas with the hope of encouraging more vibrancy and walkability in these districts, especially the old Destin area. And so combined with the way we're calculating parking, we clearly do have a deficit, an ongoing deficit as far as parking is concerned when it comes to outdoor dining. Now, the issue that we need to decide, clearly I can come back to you with an ordinance that addresses simply the outdoor dining, but I think it's important that we address parking in that whole area in a much more comprehensive fashion. And that is looking at the MMTD, which in my view, the metropolitan drivers are important. And the question is, does the council still want to pursue those? And also, if we do, then there are certain things we get to address as far as making up for the shortfall that's created by the policies of the MMTD.
Anyone want to grab that tiger by the tail first?
I'll make the motion if you want.
Go.
I would direct staff to address the outdoor parking issues along with other parking issues and bring back to council in the form of an ordinance for city council consideration.
I'll second.
We got a motion, we got a second. They left you a lot of rope to hang yourself with. But it's a dirty deed and someone's got to do it. So, Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask for the staff to bring this back to us. And thanks for doing that. And the outdoor dining with no parking requirement whatsoever has led to a huge problem in this community. So it's like everything else. It's going to get ugly, but we got to do it. So thank you for that, and look forward to bringing something back for us. Thank you.
Mr. Marlar.
Are we going to get a clarification of what we consider outdoor dining?
Yes, that will be part of what the definition will be included as part of the ordinance.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can we look at increasing parking requirements for pontoon boats and jet skis, or is this should that be a separate agenda item? Since we're discussing parking in the Harbor District.
Yeah, might as well just do it all at once. I agree.
That's what I'm getting at.
Or is that too difficult from your
That's actually pretty easy.
From a professional planning?
I can bring that up at a meeting. That's a simple change. 2 parking spots per pontoon to 3 parking spots per pontoon. It's easy math.
Why don't I take a global look at it and then bring to you suggestions of the best approach to take?
Good idea. Any other discussion? Monumental task, good luck. Let's vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. A few quick announcements. Number one, the construction drawings for Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park, I emailed them out to you. I hope you all received them. We can discuss them whenever you want to discuss them, but I wanted to get them out to you. I'd hoped to have them in the original agenda packet, but I had a couple of concerns coming up because I got them at a late hour, and I just wanted to make sure that we had the correct plans in hand. So if you didn't get them, please let me know, and I'll make sure you do. I have hard copies in my office if you want to look at the big versions. Number 2 is Independence Day fireworks that's sponsored by the City of Destin. Will be held on July the 4th at 9 p.m. over the East Pass. All city buildings will be closed on July the 4th. Mr. Webb Warren will be acting city manager from July 2nd through July the 7th. There will be a budget workshop on July the 8th at 5:30 in this room. I want to thank the Parks and Recreation staff and the code enforcement staff because these guys work all the holidays and they'll be out there working on the 4th of July again this year. They'll be out there on Friday. They'll be out there on Saturday and they'll be out there on Sunday. So I really appreciate all you guys pitching in, especially since it's Parks and Recreation Month. Appreciate Scott coming in for the presentation. We also have the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Teresa Abear, here. Appreciate her coming tonight too. Finally, tomorrow there is a bike parade for the kids at Morgan Sports Center at 5 o'clock. So if you've got a youngster that you would like to get entered in the bike parade, we used to do this and we're restarting it. It's a great event. Decorate your bike or your wagon, and it's a fun time for the kids. They should enjoy it. So, and there are lots of prizes. So that's all I have, sir.
Where's the parade run from?
It will run around the perimeter of the multi-use fields at Morgan Sports Center. So if people want to park in the western parking lot off of Commons Drive, that'd be your best bet.
Thanks, sir. That's great. Mr. Attorney, you have the mic.
All right. We have items 5A and 5B, which are companion ordinances. 5E is an amendment to the zoning map, and 5B is an amendment to the flume. I believe we have Curtis Gwynn here, who is representing the applicant. Mr. Gwynn, do you have any objection to me reading both 5A and 5B together and holding one quasi-judicial hearing for both?
No, that's perfectly fine.
And Ms. Kopp, do you have any objection on behalf of staff?
No.
Okay. 5A is the second reading of ordinance number 19-02-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code. Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps, to include a change in the zoning designation of 75.08 acres of the southwest portion of parcel number 00-2S-22-0000-0046-0000, Destin, Florida, from recreation to low-density residential village, LDRV, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. 5B, we have the second reading of ordinance number 19-03-PC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Comprehensive Plan 2020, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for the adoption of a large-scale amendment to the Comprehensive Plan future land use map to include a change in future land use designation of a parcel of land from recreation to low-density residential, providing for incorporation into the Comprehensive Plan, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. At this time, could any member of staff who plans on testifying, and Mr. Gwynn, please rise so I can swear you in, and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth? Okay. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to testify in this matter? Seeing none, City Council, if you have had any ex parte communications with any party or non-party to this matter, I'd ask that you disclose those communications at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I have had conversation with the airport director, Mr. Stage. If you all recall, Mr. Stage and the FAA did a big briefing with LPA. When this came before us last time, we weren't given a lot of information. There was emails from Mr. Stage to the city on March the 1st and April the 15th regarding the technical memorandum, so I made contact with Mr. Stage to understand what he had presented to the LPA.
Any further disclosures?
I had a conversation with Mr. Gwynn many months ago, just as an idea of what they wanted to do, that's all.
Anything else?
Yeah, I've discussed it briefly with Mr. Gwynn, just some very basics of it over the telephone. And then one of the pastors at the church nearby and about adjoining the property that we're discussing tonight. And that was pretty much the content of my phone call with Mr. Gwynn.
To err on the side of being safe, I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Gwynn, but it wasn't entirely about this and not any real one detail in particular, so.
Another thing Mr. Gwynn did after he gave his presentation, and I questioned about the traffic count, he did email me that information as well.
Mr. Minchell, do you have a copy of that email tonight? Can we provide that to the city clerk before we approve the minutes?
Yeah, I would have to look for it, but it was just an email to the city, my city address email, yes.
At this time, can I go ahead and open up for public comment? Or do the public hearing portion, or do you want to continue first?
If there are no further disclosures, I was going to turn it over to you, but I was hoping you would turn it over to Ms. Kopp to present on behalf of staff first.
Absolutely. Ms. Kopp, I am turning it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is second reading of the rezoning and future land use map amendment ordinance that you've heard before. Since the first reading, the comp plan amendment proposed has gone to the state Department of Economic Opportunity as required by Florida statutes, and there were no comments received from the state. So at this point, our Community Development Director will give you a brief overview, and then we'd like to turn it over to the applicant to give you the details before you open the public hearing.
Will do. Go ahead, Louis, first.
Yes, council members and Mayor. This is a request for rezoning of 75.08 acres from the classification of recreation to low-density residential village. That yields a density of pretty close to 6, about 5.81. A component to that is also the amendment to the future land use map from recreation, the classification, to low-density residential. As Ms. Kopp just mentioned, we have been waiting for comments from the state, and the state did not have any comments at all. So we're here for second reading, and I believe the applicant is here to share any additional comments.
Mr. Gwynn.
Curtis Gwynn, thanks again for the opportunity to be here. I really have nothing to add over what I said last time, other than at the last, I think it was April the 15th, Kyle asked if I would contact the airport, and I did. Every time that we thought it was coming up, I actually contacted them to let them know that we were on the agenda tonight. I have been in contact with them about their glide angles and things like that, so we're continuing to work with them. I also contacted Pastor Caleb with Emmanuel Anglican, went and talked to him, and they were very excited about it. So to date, I've still not had a negative comment about it. So with that, I'll end mine unless there's some questions.
Any questions from council? Ms. Ranswell?
As a resident of Indian Bayou, I'm actually excited about it too. So I have not heard any negative comments either, just positive. And if there was any concern at all, it was surrounding whether you'd be able to sell as many as you were building. And that was one thing we actually had talked about. So.
Right. We're planning on bringing any construction traffic in through the intersection there, along the airport fence. So hopefully we won't disrupt. And, as a resident of Indian Bayou myself, I'm excited about it also.
One thing I wanted to ask you was, I noticed in our comp plan, we actually have, it's called MAP 2.1, and it talks about future use, future needed motor vehicle transportation improvements, and it shows a road that goes from Indian Trail along the side perimeter of the airport and then connects right here with 2 trees.
Correct.
I was wondering if that's something y'all are going to look into
Well,
doing?
I
or-
addressed that at April the 15th. It's been so long, we probably forgot. When the airport permitted their tower over there, the air traffic control tower, they were required to put a conservation easement on about 30 or 40 acres, about half of the land that they have left over there that's in wetlands and woodlands. And when I met with Northwest Florida Regional Water Management District, they're the ones that told me about it. I have copies of all that. One of the things that is prohibited in that conservation easement is any sort of road. And remember, the mayor was asking me about that last time, and it's just something that will environmentally never happen, and because of the conservation easement that was put on it, it cannot happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I can open it up.
Yeah, public testimony and then public comment.
All right, you've been excused. Does anyone here would like to make public comment on this proposed changes to our zoning map amendment and future land use map amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to
Mr.
close.
Mayor? Yeah, I'll go with this. I'm ready with the motion.
Yes, sir.
You ready? With a just modified motion. We can include both of them.
I'd advise you vote on them separately, actually.
Okay, all right. With that said, I move to approve ordinance 19LC on second reading. However, I'd like to add in there that the need for the technical response memorandum be stipulated in each development order.
For each home that's built?
Yes.
What
The
is that?
technical response memorandum that the airport provided, the airport report that they had done, that they gave to the LPA, has a lot of stipulations in it that they agreed to, and that report should be included, yes.
I'll second that. Go ahead.
Do you understand this process? Because I'd
Yeah,
like to hear.
we do.
Can you walk me through it?
So after this process here, he will come before the technical review committee. I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. You're saying
Each individual home that's built is going to be required to go through the technical review committee for each DO?
Oh, no.
Okay. That's not the way it's
I
meant.
believe what Mr. Minchell is speaking of is the airport itself has produced a report as to certain standards that each home would have to include to reach a certain level of noise abatement. And is that what you're referring to, Mr. Minchell?
That's
Yes,
what
it
I
is.
thought. Yeah.
It's a technical response memo dated March 1st, 2019.
Right.
Yes.
So that will be part of our review process as we go through the actual development proposal.
Mr. Gwynn, did you know about this? I sense a little bit of,
I didn't, I'm hard of hearing, you'll have to excuse me. What did you ask that for the rezoning of the property, you asked that I do what?
Not rezone, but that each development order include a copy of this technical response memorandum from the airport.
Wait a minute, each development order, is that what you said? I mean,
Yes. Each building permit have this included in it.
well,
okay?
that's, let me, because that's part of your land development code already. That is a technical response that the airport put into the city after they were notified. And it is something that we're working with on the airport, with the airport, but what we have to meet is any sort of FAA requirements or the LDC airport requirements that are in the land development code now. I mean, for the council to say that in order to get a development order, that I've got to adhere to something, some outside entity did, and I'll have to say that the airport did not do anything as far as any sort of technical response when Destin Oaks was built. And they are, you know, as close or closer to the airport property line than what we're talking about doing. But I mean, I said the last time, and I'll say it again, we're working with the airport, and we're going to work through all of that. And one of the requirements is within the noise zone areas that are required by the Land Development Code, there is a restriction that is filed with every deed that falls within that noise abatement area. So it's kind of redundant what you're asking to do because it's part of the Land Development Code anyway. So I mean, all we're trying to do is get this property rezoned from, you know, and like I said the last time, it was rezoned rec, and I never found the zoning ordinance. So I mean, technically it was rezoned to recreation without ever having an official ordinance passed. But I mean, the issue you're talking about is already taken care of in the Land Development Code. Is that not correct?
Okay, so, yeah, I would ask that we not try to bind staff to the airport's technical review memo, because all of that will be part of staff's reviewing the noise issues, and any incompatibility that may or may not be created by the proximity to the airport is going to be reviewed by staff during the DO process anyway. So it doesn't need to be a part of the motion, and if we include that memo as part of the DO, that's telling staff that they can't exercise any judgment on how to address the issues from a planning perspective.
All right, I'm good with that. Just so you realize, this document was produced by Okaloosa County, okay, and provided to us. It was presented and approved at the LPA. The problem is that presentation wasn't given to council. This thing completely fell apart. I understand Mr. Gwynn came, but the good briefing that LPA got by the FAA, by the airport, we should have gotten that. And this document was approved by the LPA, and that's why I brought it forward. But I'm good with what you said. If it's part of staff, I'm good with that. I'll rescind that. I'll just go with the normal motion. That's not a problem. Move that ordinance 19OC LC on second reading.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion, got a second. Any further comment? Let's go ahead and take this for a vote if there's none. Votes unanimous, so
And
moved.
then 1903 LC, I recommend that that be approved on second reading.
Wasn't that a public hearing?
We had it, we did it both at the same time.
Oh,
Yes,
public
We just said he wanted
comment?
to vote on it.
Yes, we conducted the quasi-judicial hearing on both motions. I just asked that you vote on them separately for clarity's
And I
sake.
asked the audience if there was anybody. Nobody did. Okay, so we're done.
Well, does anybody from the public want to comment? Let's make sure here.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I was actually in attendance at that LPA meeting, and the LPA did not get that presentation. It was cut off by LPA member Don David, and they were stopped in the middle of their presentation. They did not get that full presentation, and I believe that you guys should have that.
To clarify, I believe that they did get the document itself, but the presentation itself was stopped, correct? Is that your recollection as well? Okay.
By the way, that was Marcy Bell on the public record. No. You're safe. We have you on film. All right, so.
Mr. Mitchell, you made the motion on 5B.
Move to approve ordinance 1903 on second reading.
Yep. We got a motion? Okay.
I seconded it, yeah.
Okay, I got a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Vote unanimous, so moved. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yes, we have the second reading of ordinance 19-09-LC. Hang on just a second while I get to it. An ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designations of 468 parcels generally depicted in the location map attached, Destin, Florida, to match the assigned land use designation of the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Zunguzzi, if you're testifying on behalf of staff, just remember you do remain under oath.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So again, this is an effort, as I mentioned at the last hearing, that is aimed at aligning the city zoning map to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. At your request last time, at your direction, we removed areas 4, 5, 7, and 15, which will be subject for discussion at a workshop next week, I believe. And so this is everything else but those areas that's before you for second reading.
I guess at this time, I will open it up, the public hearing portion of this. Does anyone want to make a comment? Seeing none?
So the
Hold
ordinance.
on. I do have someone over there. I saw a hand raised. No, this is on this particular second reading of ordinance 1909 LC. Okay, no. All right, no problem.
Did I miss something? Did we need to do 1903 PC first?
Mr. Minchell made two separate motions.
So okay, I thought we were just reaffirming the first one that we did. Okay, I got confused. All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and I'll entertain a motion.
I can make that motion. I move to approve ordinance 1909 LC on second reading.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Parker, there you go. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Lance? Consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got 3 items, and I believe Michael wanted to address item 6C and change the recommended motion.
Council, what I'd suggest, if nobody has a problem with items 6A and 6B, if you do not want to pull those, you go ahead and vote on those, and then we'll let Michael address 6C.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda 6A, 6B, and pull 6C.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All right. Vote unanimous, so moved. Michael?
Mayor, council, just the motion that you have in front of you states that council approve the repair of the street sweeper. The revised motion reads that I would move that the council approve the repair of the primary engine of the street sweeper in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
All right. Do I have?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'll make a motion to whatever he said, if Ray's got it written down. Yeah, I move for council to repair. No, but Ray could.
Second.
There you go.
Ray can't.
We're going to put it on the public record correctly.
Okay. I move that the council approve the repair of the primary engine of the street sweeper in the amount not to exceed $35,000.
Second.
Got a motion? Got a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Braden.
Did we get an estimate to repair that engine?
Yes, sir. It's at the repair facility in Pensacola now, and we did receive a quote for the repair.
Is that diesel?
Yes, sir.
What kind?
I believe it's a Duramax.
So that repair, how much was the repair just for the motor?
Close to $35,000.
That's not high.
What's it going to cost to fix the rest of it?
The engine has to be replaced.
What's it going to cost to fix the rest of the sweeper that's tore up?
We are not sure. We haven't been able to assess the rear engine that operates the vacuum and brush system. Once the primary engine is repaired, we can move that vehicle to Mobile, to I believe it's Ingram Equipment, and they'll take a look at the Kubota diesel engine in the rear.
Has that investigation on that whole incident, has that been finalized, City Manager?
It has, and we have implemented some changes to make sure something like this does not happen again and to hold people accountable for their actions.
Was it operator error?
So what you're saying is nobody was really held accountable at this incident? This incident?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
We did hold people accountable for their actions.
Okay, thank you. I have no further, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. All right, we got a motion, got a second. We need a street sweeper. Ayes have it, so moved. All right. Mr. Braden, Royal Melvin Park, I think you have on there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we'll start with Memorial Park. I just want to make a motion, as soon as our construction drawings are 100% complete or ready to go out for bid, that we put that out for bid for construction on that park, on the Clement Taylor.
So we got a motion,
Second.
got a second. Anyone want to discuss? Where are we at on the plans? Are they done?
Can I chime in, Mr. Mayor? I just want to make sure the council is aware that we do not have final approval from the U.S. Treasury for our money. So it's a potential risk that anything we spend, we may not be reimbursed for until we get the official approval from U.S. Treasury. I just want you to be aware of that.
What's it going to cost for us to put that out for bid?
It should not cost us to go out to bid other than the advertising cost for that. It will be, once we get them back in, the commitment we make, we should hold.
Okay, thank you. Motion stands.
Okay, I got a motion, got a second. Any further?
That's for Clement Taylor?
The Royal Melvin Heritage Park.
Oh, okay, I thought someone said Clement.
Second.
We got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion?
So the plans aren't at 100%, or they are?
They're finished.
They're finished, and so
I
you're
thought-
telling
yeah.
us, you're telling city staff to put it out to bid now?
The plans, are they 100% ready to go out for bid?
My understanding is they are 100%, but you as a council have not voted to approve them yet.
Lance, are you bringing back those plans at the next meeting? Is that what you said?
That was my intention. They were emailed out today. I was going to bring them back to council for an official approval on them, but it's council's decision. I'm just being
Rodney,
overly
you want to stick it
cautious
on the
this.
next agenda for an approval?
Yeah, I mean, I got the email on it, or their plans, but
Yeah, we could
that's the will of the council, we can put it
Yeah,
on the
can we
next
approve it
agenda.
now, or do you want to do a presentation?
We'll just do it let them do it on the next meeting.
I would suggest we move this to the next meeting so that we have it on a public meeting where the plans are on the agenda and the people can look at them.
Fair enough. I'll remove my motion.
All right.
I have a question about this topic.
Go ahead, Rodney.
Do you mind?
You still have the floor.
So it seemed, I feel like we had another plan drawn up for 30,000 or 20,000 or something from a local company. And that's the final, didn't we vote on those already? We just saw them.
Yeah, we just voted to have the plans drawn up. They've been drawn up, we've got them, they've been sent off to Treasury, but they're not 100% rubber stamped by us. But I figure that's a pretty good,
Okay. Clearly,
Topic for next
this
one.
park has gone 1,000 different directions, so good, okay.
Mr. Braden.
Thanks. the old cement plant property that we purchased, where is that in the whole scheme of things as far as getting it developed?
We have submitted the grant to DEP to actually, it's not just for that parcel, it's to combine that parcel with the 3 other parcels to make one big recreation area. I've heard only positive comments from DEP about us getting the funding in excess of probably in the $12 to $14 million range to make that a family recreation area, natural area. It's in the queue. I can't give you a time frame other than I'll double check, but every time I ask, I get the 3 or 4 month answer, and then 3 or 4 months later, I get a 3 or 4 month answer. So I'll double check with them.
We can probably talk about it some in our budget workshops too. Start looking at.
Yeah, I know we had the grant application out, and because we had sliced off one ramp or something, because they wouldn't fund the whole thing, because we do have commercial activity on one ramp. Yeah, if you can just kind of get us an update on that, to see kind of where we're at, because I got people asking what's going on with the old cement plant property. Thought we had paid $57,000 to clean it off, and so they could use it for overflow parking for boat trailers, but it was rapidly just trashed back up again after that. Can somebody tell me why that presentation from the airport was stopped at the LPA meeting? The short version?
Go ahead, Kim.
Are you talking about the airport presentation again? It was requested by one of the LPA members to not finish listening to the whole thing because it was going to be, the impacts from the airport were going to be reviewed by staff anyway. And at this point in the process, it was a future land use map amendment and a rezoning, and so that level of detail had not been reviewed by staff yet. So it was requested that they just let staff get to that at the appropriate time, and so they stopped it. Although we did hear most of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make one more comment about our 2-lane road. It's been said multiple times that we have the ability to build a 2-lane road. That's our option. This council can build a 2-lane road, and that's exactly what we intend on doing, is build a 2-lane road and build it so it's not a 4-lane road. That's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the members of the Public Works and Safety Committee actually asked that I bring forward the idea of putting up some no texting signs in various places through the city. I guess that became a law on July 1 or June 1 or sometime recently. Yesterday. Whoever said that, yes, thank you. So if that's maybe something we can look into putting, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, wherever y'all think is the most logical, reasonable place to put it, some sort of, Florida laws, no texting, I don't know, there's got to be a standard sign, but I did want to bring that forward as a recommendation from that committee to go ahead and get that done. And then, I'm going to be looking into this because I'm really bothered by the fact that at the last 2 meetings in which FDOT was present, and I don't want to harp on this, but this is really important to me, and I think it's important to everyone in the city, is that the fatalities we are experiencing on and at the foot of the bridge. And I stressed to FDOT that night how important I thought it was to get this done yesterday and not wait a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year or two. And they had said, they even got their regional head to stand up and say that it was in the plan already and going to be worked on. And so to find out that it's not, I'm confused, I'm concerned, and I want to get to the bottom of it because we need signage up there now. We need something up there to prevent more deaths because of traffic suddenly realizing there's a slowdown and a stop. So staff, I may be reaching out to you all to assist in that endeavor, but I do intend on reaching out like tomorrow morning to find out what's going on with that. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
I want to first thank the businesses along 98. For the last couple of meetings, I've been talking about the grass that needed cutting, and if you look at it right now, it's been done, so a big thank you to all the businesses that stepped up and cut the grass. We had a gentleman here earlier talking about the helicopters, and an observation that I've made is because of this flight path, they are moving obviously east now, and they travel along basically Okaloosa County until they get to the Walton County line just about, and they make a U-turn at Captain Dave's and go back. It's my understanding that these helicopters are supposed to be for sightseeing, if you will, and a panoramic view at a higher level would certainly be more advantageous than some sort of thrill ride like you're on a roller coaster, okay, because they're going up and down at different points along Scenic 98. I would say that they're probably closer to shore than they have to be, and I know we probably don't have any skin in that game, but I'd just like to ask staff to start looking at that and see what we can do. Again, I know there was National Park Service, whatever, that was involved that basically ran them from the other side, and we may not have anything at all, but if we could have some kind of dialogue. Again, I'm not an expert, but it appears there might be some safety violations, and we need to address it now, but sooner than later, just like the light on the bridge. Staff, on page, just FYI, under the ordinance 1909 LC, which is page 124 of our packet, if you go down into the Excel spreadsheet, it starts on page 126. I've mentioned this before. When you publish this, it's not wide enough to put all of the lines of that Excel spreadsheet. So page 126, 127, 128, and whatnot, and all the way through 135, okay? And then on 135, you have two columns. So that graph that you're giving us is useless because it can't make heads or tail of it. I realize there's a lot of information there, but I don't know if there's some kind of way that we could reconfigure it that we could at least read it, because it's just not helpful. And last, Mr. Wood brought up something I think that's important earlier when he asked us to draft up a letter to TPOA. Basically, he said that he wanted to move up the feasibility study for the project to redesign Harbor Boulevard from 21 to 20, and also the Stallman project from 21 to 20. So I just want to kind of reinforce that and ask staff. I don't know if we have to get a consensus on that or the city manager is going to do that, but those two things obviously need to be broadcast to TPO so they can bring it up at their next meeting.
We've got it. We'll get it.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on those two things. And last but not least, the last meeting, if you'll recall, we discussed FDOT executive summary on the signalization, and they had only given us page 6 of 14 of that report. Did we have any luck getting the other part of that report?
Yes, sir, we did. We got the whole report. It was 200 pages, I believe, and I believe
Okay.
I forwarded that to Ray.
Okay, if you could just get it out to us, please. Thank you. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Marler, or Mr. Oberdear.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we kicked the can. I won't make any more comments on that, except that we're going to spend a lot of taxpayer dollars to start all over again, so I hope we don't have any major accidents in the neighborhoods that are really super affected. The only other thing I have is I would like the council, and I'll make this into form of a motion, I would move that council allow a paid holiday for July the 5th and allow the employees that can to have a longer holiday. It's kind of odd that we're going to have the 4th of July on Thursday, and then Friday they got to come back to work, and then we got Saturday and Sunday. So I'd like to make that as a motion that we also let July 5.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, got a second. Anyone like to weigh in on that comment?
Do we need to set aside the order of the day?
Well,
Because it's under my comment.
Logistically going to be okay?
technically it needs to be.
If it's under my comments, I don't think we have to.
I didn't see it under your comment.
That's because I just thought of it a couple hours before the meeting. Is there a problem with that, Mr. Braden? If you want me to ask, I'll make a motion to set aside the agenda if that's what y'all want.
No, I'm just asking, is that what we need to do? We have in the past, if it's not on the agenda, it's either got to be a majority or whatever. I'm just.
Okay,
Generally, if it's not on the agenda, it requires a supermajority vote.
I call the question.
This motion has been called to question. Let's vote. Motion passed. So moved.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. Destin.
Well, I don't need any motions, so this will be kind of just a consensus, but at the base of the bridge, it's been I drive it every morning. It's getting pretty wild on our western side. It's not outside of our jurisdiction, but I might encourage us to go ahead and give the county as much of a nudge as we can with a letter of request regarding code enforcement over there. We got some big time trash issues. We've got, we've got some, a lot of unlicensed vending that's occurring. You know, there's a myriad of problems, but if staff and the land use attorney want to take a stab at the drafting of a letter that we can adopt, perhaps at the next meeting, then I'll give you that. I'll give you at least my vote of a yes for a consensus on that.
Yeah, and I'll sign it.
Is there going to be I know you said the county, but I'm assuming that the Air Force and
Yeah, we'll probably send one to the,
has a little bit.
Well, I mean, we can
the
CC
commander.
all legally. I know a lot of them have taken a laissez-faire attitude, but I think probably just CC everybody in the hierarchy, but I know that the county's pretty much on the lead.
The good news is Commissioner Goodwin's here to listen.
That's right.
I'll sign the letter, Commissioner.
Do we need a motion or just consensus?
Consensus is fine.
I think we're fine. Everybody's.
That's all I've got, Mayor. Thanks.
Bobby Head. Mr. Morgan.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
I said my piece loud and clear. Ms. Kopp.
Just another update on this case, because I've previously given you two conflicting updates on the concluded litigation between BI Inc. and the city. First, I told you that the lawsuit was dismissed and that the judge agreed with the city and plaintiff that the lawsuit was over. Next, I told you that the intervener in the case, which is the Destin Fishing Fleet, had filed an objection, making some allegations of fraud and apparently trying to keep the litigation going, which resulted in the judge allowing another hearing. So that hearing on the intervener's motion was held last Thursday, and I'm pleased to let you know that the judge once again agreed with the city and plaintiff that the lawsuit is over, and therefore also agreed that the court no longer had jurisdiction.
So everybody's prayers were answered?
Everybody's happy. Kinda. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, just briefly, I have an update to the East Pass administrative litigation that's in front of DOA. Mr. Tadlock spoke about this earlier, so I won't go into great detail because everything he stated is accurate. We have a final hearing set for the 29th through the 31st. At this point, we're staying the course as per council direction. We are in the discovery phase of the litigation and we're almost through it. There is a couple more depositions that need to be taken, and after that, we're really done with the bulk of the case and just need to go to a final hearing. Just briefly on the Army Corps permit, that was dismissed. However, a new challenger came up, and this challenger can circumvent some of the notice issues that were presented to the Sherrys and Donovan. So I'd anticipate that challenge lasting a lot longer than the city's challenge at this point, which hopefully will be cleared up in August. So that's it.
All right, thank you. At this particular time, we'll open up public comment one more time. If anyone would like to weigh in, ma'am.
Again, for the record, I'm Becky McFarland, 644 Seaview Drive. I just want to say how disappointed I am in the four of you that voted against it. I don't believe that either any of you, except for with the regards of you on Kelly are affected by this. And there's going to be a lot of angry people. And it's probably going to affect a lot of things that happen in the future. I'm a little confused, though. What the heck just happened? Are we having a road or are we not?
No, we were going to have a road. We're
There's
sending
no
it back
road.
out. We're
There's
sending
no
it.
road.
Do you want my answer?
I just was looking at somebody saying,
Okay.
no.
So he's saying there's no practical road. I'm saying the staff has been instructed through this, what we've just adopted, to redesign what has been proposed. What was proposed has right-of-way for 4 lanes in the future. What we've instructed staff to do is to redesign what could be adopted and built to be 2 lanes. Now, that will slow down the process, and that upsets Chatham. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but
We'll get the road back and we'll probably vote against it after we redesign it.
Oh, it'll go,
That's just the
it'll
way
keep
this
coming
has
up and
worked,
it'll
so.
still go
But
away.
just if you can, I know you're frustrated, just address the council as a whole, or just look at me and chew
I'll look
me
at
out.
you.
Okay?
No, I'm not going to chew you.
All
I'm
right,
not
so
going to chew anybody.
what I'm saying is, we have not adopted what was offered tonight, which is the 4-lane right-of-way with the 2-lane design. What I put out there and what passed is actually going back to the drawing board, and we are going to submit an application that has right-of-way for 2 lanes and a 2-lane road sitting in a 2-lane footprint. So that's where it stands.
May I ask another question?
Of course.
How long will that take?
It's undetermined.
Because we're going to have to resubmit for funding, which we may or may not get now. That's the reality of it.
So, all for nothing, 25 years, or more, 30, all for nothing. And then you just went ahead and said that we can have more development, and that upsets me too.
How did we say that?
Thank you.
Okay, if you don't want to
Just let go.
Thanks again for listening.
Thank you, Becky. Anyone else like to weigh in? Come in, Marcy. You're only allowed one subject on the last.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court, just to make sure you know who I am. You guys were talking about underneath the bridge on the west end. I was down there the other day. I'm sure many of you know that. Investigating a situation, and I met a lady who goes down there twice a week, and she informed me that as you talk about garbage down there, there's needles down there. She picked up 3 needles, and one of the needles was still attached to the, pardon me, I don't know the language of all that, the syringe, but the syringe was under the sand and the needle was sticking up. So in that situation, we can only imagine, I mean, I could have shoes on and still step on that. So there's definitely a situation down there that's dangerous for all of us, or anybody who's down there. So I just wanted to bring that up outside of just the regular trash and garbage. Thanks.
Ms. Bell, I have a question. Do you think it's because it's not well lit or it's not well watched for, I can't think of a better term right now, but
I just think that anybody who may partake in those activities, maybe just find a place where they can, whether it's lit or not lit, maybe, it's a closed park, I believe, after hours, after sundown. I think that's what the sign says.
You're right, it is.
So, I mean, even if people are coming up on boats, or I don't know. I don't go down there that often, so I really don't know, but, I mean, and I can't tell you who they belong to on any level.
Didn't expect, that's okay.
At this time, meeting adjourned.